Freya's Pav. In a few days to come, she'll be gone from our lives for good. I clutched the plate I was washing tightly as I heard Likril, my stepmother's voice in the corridor. My hands were weak already, standing all day with just a minute or two interval to rest. Every day I worked tirelessly in the house, my own father's house, like a slave while his beloved wife and my step-siblings have enough time to wander around. I had no choice anyway. Ever since I lost my mother to the cold hands of death, it had been one torture after the other, leaving my body filled with scars and bruises almost all the time. So much for being a wolfless Omega, despised by her father. Who would feed me or give me shelter if I refused to do the work? I hope you had a good bargain with... I heard my stepmother's voice fading. Even though I tried to stay glued to my spot, I soon washed my hands and dried it with my apron, tiptoeing silently behind them as they walked towards their room. The voice of my stepmother came once again, drawing my attention to whatever they were saying. "Richard, dear, I can't wait for her to be gone. We will be so rich, and also we won't have to worry about our debts again." Her malicious tone immediately told me she was talking about me, but what I was confused about were her words. Rich. Gone. Where was I going? I knew I shouldn't be eavesdropping, but I had no choice. I needed all the details I could get. "Such a bad habit you have there, Freya." Enzo, my stepbrother, scorned. I snapped my head around to behold Enzo's eyes gazing lustfully at me. "It's not what you think, Enzo. I was just walking by," I said, trying to run away from his flirtatious gaze before he pounced on his prey. Me. My stepbrother's eyes hovered around my body like he wanted to peel my clothes off with them. "It doesn't look like you were just walking by." He grabbed my wrist, spinning me to face him. "Look how beautiful you look, Freya." He tried bringing his lips to mine, but I shrugged him off, my heart racing with disgust. "Please, Enzo, just stop already," I pleaded, struggling to free myself from his tight grip. Ever since my mother died, I had wanted my father to get married so he wouldn't be lonely. Little did I know my wish would come back to haunt me in the most painful way. Likril, my stepmother, had come from her previous marriage with her 2 children, Enzo and Amanda, who hated me with every part of their being. I felt someone grab my ass, and that was when I saw Enzo smirking with a disgusting look on his face. Raising my hand, I made sure to slap him hard across his cheeks, enough to alert the attention of my father and his wife. "What the hell is happening here?" Likril asked immediately as she stepped out. "And you?" She pointed at me. "Aren't you supposed to be in the kitchen doing the dishes?" I was just trying to..." And in a split second, I felt like the room was spinning. She had slapped me hard, which sent me sprawling on the floor, holding my cheeks. "She was eavesdropping on you and father." Enzo spat, his eyes blazing. I knew he had snitched on me because I slapped him, and I certainly knew what would follow this. A severe beating and a night without food. "You bastard child!" Likril charged angrily towards me, balling her fist. I was done for. I wanted to run away to anywhere safe, but on the contrary, there was nowhere safe for me to go to. With a triumphant look on his face, Enzo walked towards me, pinning me down as I waited for the beating from my stepmother's long horsewhip. "Mother, no. Please, I wasn't eavesdropping, please." Enzo let me go. I struggled, wishing the ground could just open and allow me to be buried deep inside. I could be anywhere else, but not in this house. I heard the heavy boots of my father as he walked out of the room. I was certain he had been looking for anything to use as a punishment tool for me. "You've been such a bad girl, Freya? Eavesdropping on 2 adults? I bet you learnt that from your mother." I was willing to take all the painful words from him, but I hated it whenever he dragged my mother into it. As I watched him approach me, swirling the thick, long stick in his hands, I could perceive the familiar smell of alcohol, and I knew he had been drinking again. My father was a beast any time he got drunk. I lowered my head, unable to meet his gaze. "Father, please, lie her flat on the floor. I'll teach her a lesson she won't ever forget in her life." "No, mother, please," begged father. "No, Enzo, stay away from... Stop, please, it hurts." My body shook intensely with extreme pain as he landed the stick on my bare back. I could feel my skin peeling and bleeding already by the time he was done. With my tear-filled eyes, I looked at Enzo, who seemed to be enjoying the scene playing, and then my gaze darted to Amanda, who stood just at a corner, gloating. I was slowly losing consciousness from the intense pain I was feeling. It was as though I was going into a trance as everything became blurry. "Let her go already, Richard. We don't want to present a pale-looking lady to him," Lycril said with condescension. Him? Who was he? My mind raced with different thoughts of what they were probably planning, but none made any sense to me. As I slowly stood up, I looked at Lycril, the woman who I had wished she could treat me like her own daughter, laughing sarcastically at me. "Look how pathetic you look, Freya. Next time, don't ever eavesdrop on adults." She spat, her voice laced with venom. I leaned against the wall, panting heavily from the beating I had just gotten from my so-called family. "You need to go dress that wound on your back like you always do. We can't afford to have Xavier come pick you up like this." She sounded happy as she spoke, and I wondered what it was that they had planned. Who was Xavier? And why is he coming to get me? Seeing the confused look on my face, my father leaned forward, holding my chin up so I could face him. He tightened his grip on my jaw, digging his fingers inside my skin till it bled. "You'll be such a good girl when you finally arrive at the NorthRidge pack." "NorthRidge pack?" I muttered the courage to ask my father. "What will I be doing there, father?" "You will be meeting your new master, Freya." "Freya's Pav?" Lycril's shrill voice rang out, echoing around the hallway. "Your father and I are planning something huge for you, Freya, and I bet you'll love it." "I mean, you have no choice." My heart was pounding in fear already as I waited for more details of whatever they might have talked about. "You're going to the NorthRidge pack in the next few hours, Freya. You're going to serve the Alpha, and he has paid quite an amount already." My heart sank as I listened to my father. Gasping in disbelief, I took time to stare at everyone in the room, and they all had a smirk on their faces. Have they been planning this all along? To send me off like some cheap thing? Like a piece of trash? I couldn't believe what I just heard. I couldn't believe my own father had done this to me, to his own daughter. My face fell on Lycril, who seemed to be the one enjoying this drama the most. "You agreed to this too? For me to go to the NorthRidge pack and serve the Alpha?" I cried hurtfully. My heart was hurt. It was in pain. I was in pain, and there was no remedy to soothe it. I bit my lower lips as Lycril grinned triumphantly at me. "What an evil bitch," I cursed under my breath. "You should be glad I accept that you work for him, Freya." My father's cold voice came, sizing me up. Many girls would have killed to have this opportunity. I didn't fail to notice the mockery in his voice. The NorthRidge pack? The Alpha? Alpha with the 9 lives like he was always called? The same man who has single-handedly battled and killed 100 rogues in a ferocious battle with just his bare hands? This is the same man he is sending me off to. How cruel could my father be? Lycril interrupted my thoughts. "Why do you look like you've seen a ghost, Freya?" "Oh, Common, I get what you might be thinking. He isn't so scary like people have said. He's just, strict." Strict? What the hell was she freaking saying? The Alpha of the NorthRidge pack isn't someone to be messed with. He is the ruler of the most powerful pack of the North Zone, known for his fighting prowess and unforgiving spirit. Rumor has it that he was a blood-sucking motherfucker who would kill his rivals and enemies by cutting their body into pieces while they were still alive and burying it in different places of the earth. This same monster is who my father wants me to serve. I fell on my face, banging my head on the floor, as my body convulsed uncontrollably due to my sobs that had broken into tears, pleading with all my might. "Please, Father, I beg you, I won't cause you any more troubles. Please don't send me to the NorthRidge pack, please." I crawled, my body dripping with blood from the lashes I had received. I fell face flat, holding Lycril's leg. "Please, Mother, don't let Father send me away. Please, beg him, please." "Begging won't solve anything, Freya. The deed is done already. Just get ready to leave in a few hours," she said, dismissing me. With the tears still running down my face, I looked up to behold her face, which had a sly smile on it. "Mother, please say something else. Don't do this to me," I whispered painfully. "Stay away from her." My father pushed me away, hitting my stomach with his heavy boots. I let the tears roll down my cheeks. I quickly retreated and sat in a corner, holding my tattered cloth to my bosom, my whole body shaking from fear and pain. "Father, please." I cowered, cradling my head in my arms as my father approached, still with whip in his hands. I was expecting him to land me another shot, but instead he crouched and grabbed my neck, shoving my head backwards. "If you beg me one more time, I'll whip you till you can barely talk." He screamed at me and pushed me, hitting my head on the oil-painted wall. I felt like my life flashed right before my eyes, and my breath was being knocked out of me. Not even water had touched my lips, yet I had to bear all the tortious acts of my father with my weak, frail body. Holding tight onto the doorknob, I pulled myself up, making my way towards the kitchen where I always slept. That was my little room. The image of my mother's ever-smiling face came to my mind. I knew I wouldn't be in this situation if she were alive. I used to be my father's beloved daughter, the apple of his eyes and the joy in his heart, but everything changed when Lakerl came with her 2 children. "Make sure to wipe those silly tears off your face. You can't have our guests thinking otherwise of us." Lakerl's voice was firm and condescending. That was it. That was all she cared about, and I wondered if she would have acted the same if it was Amanda in my shoes, if it was her own beloved daughter being sold to him. To that monster. Creak! The door to the kitchen opened as I lay still in the darkness, my heart racing with fear. "Who's there?" I called out, searching frantically for my torchlight. A pair of hands suddenly grabbed me, and before I could tell, my mouth was stuffed with a piece of cloth. In a twinkle of an eye, my clothes were being torn off me. Thank the moon goddess, my father had disconnected the light from the kitchen hallway a few days back. I wouldn't have been able to bear being seen stark naked. "Keep shut, Freya, and I won't hurt you." "Enzo?" That was Enzo's voice. He tugged at my clothes, which I held onto tightly with all my might. The last thing he would do was to rape me in my own father's house. I struggled with him, and at that moment the gag came out, but he quickly covered my mouth with his hands so I couldn't make a sound. Whimpering, I stared at him. I could see his eyes now, which were staring lustfully at me. "Enzo, please don't do this. Please, please, please," I pleaded before finally biting his hands, rolling away from him. A slap landed on my face, making me lay still in silence for a moment until I regained my strength. He pulled me closer to him, speeding my legs apart and planting disgusting kisses on my neck. "Enzo, no!" I tried pushing him off, but he was well-built and muscular. My frail stature had no hope. I frantically shook my head, my eyes filled with tears as he brought his lips to my nipples. At that moment, I felt disgusted and hated myself. I looked around, searching for any weapon I could use. That was when my eyes caught sight of a bottle I had often used in rolling out doughs. I stretched out my hand, groaning silently as my muscles pulled and got strained. "You taste so sweet, Freya." My ears hurt from his disgusting words. I felt like molten lead was being poured inside of it. I was finally able to pick the bottle. Without any hesitation, I brought it down on his head, making him yelp away from me in pain. Fuck! I hope I didn't kill him. Freya's pav. He held the back of his head, which was gushing out blood, and charged towards me. I knew only a miracle could save me from Enzo now, and a miracle did indeed happen. Lakerl must have heard the commotion, for I heard her walking towards us. "What's happening, Freya? What's with the noise?" The joy I felt when I heard her voice was indescribable. I rolled away from the floor, my torn dress barely covering my body. What in the moon goddess happened here? Lakerl shrieked immediately when she saw Enzo and I. He tried raping me. I didn't know when the tears started falling. "Liar!" Lakerl's hand landed on my face. "How dare you say that about my son?" "But I'm not lying," I cried out, holding my cheek. How could she dismiss the truth even with all the evidence that was so glaring? Without another word, she pulled Enzo away and walked out, leaving me in my own pool of tears. Slumping to the floor, I began to cry. I was tired already, tired of the life I was living currently. "What do you think you were doing, Enzo?" I heard Lakerl's shrill voice as she cautioned her son in hushed tones. "You already know I want her mother. You didn't have to interfere. You should have let me have my way before she leaves for NorthRidge in a few hours." I gasped in disbelief. I couldn't believe my ears. Lakerl was probably being cautious of her son and not allowing him to have carnal knowledge of me because I was the only way for them to make money, and they wouldn't dare to give an already defiled lady to the Alpha. I ran outside, pushing past them. Once I was outside, I pulled at my skin and rubbed it so hard till I bled. I poured a bucket full of water on my body till I was certain Enzo's scent could no longer be perceived on me. As I walked back inside, like a walking corpse, Enzo's flirtatious gaze fell upon my body, but immediately, Likril pulled him away, not wanting a reoccurrence of the past scene. I was too scared to sleep. I feared Enzo might come back and this time have his way with me. I stayed up, watching the clock tick slowly as my mind raced with different thoughts of how tomorrow was going to turn out when I finally left for NorthRidge. I felt something wet on my body and I woke up immediately, holding my dress to my bosom as I shivered. It was Amanda. This was her usual way of waking me up, pouring ice-cold water on me and kicking my sides till I get up. Stop sleeping like a log of wood. Mother needs you ready in 10 minutes. The Alpha will be here soon. Her voice was curt as usual. I was used to her nasty attitude already, for I had taken much more from her mother. I sprang up to my feet immediately. Any delay could earn me another round of beating, which I wasn't ready for. I hurried to the bathroom and had a hot bath, making sure to wash my body thoroughly after last night's encounter with Enzo. Even though he never had his way with me, I was deeply disgusted by his mere touches and kisses. Soon after I was done, I stood in front of the mirror admiring myself. The floral gown I had sewn myself clung to my slim body, accentuating my curves. My hair was let loose, hanging down with just a strand draping over my face. I had thought I would wear the dress to my marking ceremony when I found my mate who would see me as his beautiful Luna and announce me to the whole world as his beloved, but here I was, being sold to the cruelest Alpha. As I looked deeply into the mirror, I saw my skin bruised and pale from all the beatings. My eyes had pains in them, and even though I tried to smile, my eyes seemed to tell a different story, a story of pain, of torture and abuse. I didn't deserve all these. I never asked to be born into the world. A tear escaped my eyes as I looked at the cloth I had made for my 18th birthday. And today was my 18th birthday, but I didn't wear the cloth because of the birthday, but to meet the Alpha of the NorthRidge pack, my new owner. As I walked out, Enzo and Amanda stood by the doorway, a smirk on their faces. "Look who's going to the NorthRidge pack today," Amanda teased, pulling at my hair. "I hope I never get to see your face ever again," she added, her voice dripping with disdain. "Such nice ass, Freya." Enzo smacked my ass as I walked past him. I could hear him and Amanda chuckle. My eyes once again were moist with tears after Enzo's disgusting act. I wanted to skin him alive, to scratch his face and pull his eyes out, but the throng had their eyes on me, and I knew the last thing I wanted to do was make a bad impression of myself. "Move," Enzo shouted before pushing me, urging me to walk faster. The tears again threatened to fall down my face, and I didn't stop it. I was tired already, tired of the ill treatment and Enzo's flirty, disgusting actions and words. I bit back my retort, my heart boiling with anger. "I'll make you all pay for this," I muttered under my breath, sobbing quietly as I walked. "Don't you dare touch me again, Enzo," I shouted as he raised his hands once again to smack my ass. "Just don't dare fucking try it." I tried hard to look strong, but my voice betrayed me. I was breaking on the inside. "Who the hell do you think you are to tell me what to do and what not to do? I'll touch you whenever and wherever I want, and there's nothing you or anybody can do about it," he roared, walking towards me with a look on his face like he had just found a prey. "Enzo, please," I begged, walking hastily towards Likril and my father, who stood downstairs talking to a strange man who seemed to be interested in my drama with Enzo. Enzo soon caught up with me. His face had a weird grin on it, as he gave me a death stare before pulling me closer to himself. Placing a hand on my shoulder, he pressed me against his body and placed the other hand on my buttocks, fondling it. I couldn't help the feeling of disgust creeping into my soul as I heard a moan escape his slightly opened lips. "Go away from me, Enzo." With all the strength I could gather, I pushed him away, making him stumble backwards. I knew I had just triggered his anger, and if it were not for the people who already had their attention on us, I could swear Enzo wouldn't stop until he had left bruises and marks on my body. Taking advantage of the distraction on Enzo's side, I rushed downstairs quickly, standing at a safe distance away from Enzo and my father and his wife, but close enough for me to hear their discussion. I believe your Alpha will like her. We've taken out time to groom her to his satisfaction. Freya's pav. I turned towards the direction of my stepmother, and my eyes met with the man standing with her. He was cloaked in a black blazers, and he had a cold, mean look on his face. Freya! Likril called out to me, which sent me hurrying towards her, and bowing immediately, I was in front of them. This is Xavier. Xavier, this is Freya. The man stood still, his eyes never leaving my body. Look up, he finally said, breaking the silence that had enveloped us the moment our eyes locked. He took my chin in his hands and lifted my face to meet his. She doesn't seem to me like someone who's been taken care of. Xavier's voice was gruff, deep, and firm as he shot my stepmother a doubting gaze. Tell him, Freya, how we've been taking good care of you. She nudged me with her elbow, making me flinch. Yes, they've been taking good care of me, sir, I muttered, unable to meet his piercing gaze. I sincerely wished he believed and did not ask further questions. I covered my bruised hand with a part of my floral gown and brushed my hair forward, letting it cover a part of my neck, which was severely bruised. You don't have to do that. Brushing off the hair from my neck, he lifted up my face to behold his gaze. Your neck is bruised. Is this still a sign you've been taken care of? He asked, this time with his eyes flashing with anger as he shot my stepmother another deadly look before finally looking at Enzo. Seize him, he ordered. He had witnessed the commotion between Enzo and I earlier, but I never expected him to go as far as ordering his men to deal with him. You did this to her? Xavier, the beta of NorthRidge, asked as he took slow steps towards Enzo, who was pinned down to the floor. No, beta, he didn't. Enzo would never do that. Right, Freya? Likril said with pleading eyes. I knew she wanted me to help her son get out of the dangerous situation, but I hesitated, turning my face away from her. Just this time, I wanted to see Enzo feel the pain I used to go through and pay for trying to defile me. Right, Freya? Likril said again, this time between clenched teeth. For a while, I was intimidated to say yes, but Xavier came to my rescue. You're not allowed to interfere in my discussion with your son. Let him speak. You're not his mouthpiece. Turning towards Enzo, Xavier, whose voice had taken a meaner tone, asked again, this time crouching to his length and pulling Enzo's hair. You did this to her, right? It was a mistake, Beta Xavier. I didn't mean to do that to her. It won't happen again. Please spare me. I had never seen Enzo so vulnerable before. I watched as he stared at my father, who looked so humble at the moment. Enzo had expected my father to once again come to his rescue like he had always done, but my father stood still, not breathing a word, and I knew no one dared challenge Xavier. Peel the skin off his fingers, Xavier ordered before taking a seat to watch the scene. No! Beta Xavier, please spare him, Likril cried, falling at her feet. Who would have thought the almighty Likril would stoop low as to beg someone and even fall at his feet? Richard, do something. Beg him, please. She begged, pulling my father, who stood still with an unreadable expression on his face, towards Xavier. A heart-wrenching cry erupted through the air. I couldn't witness the gory scenes, and I fell on my face, begging Xavier. Enzo might have treated me badly, but my fragile heart couldn't bear the pain he was going through at the moment. Please, Beta Xavier. Please let him go. I beg you. I pleaded, my face still on the floor. Not until my order has been taken out, he said, steepling his fingers. Likril glared at me furiously, hurling insults as she walked towards my direction, aiming to dig her long, sharp nails into my skin. You bastard child! Why didn't you tell him you were the one trying to seduce my son? You lowlife, I'll make sure you pay for this. She was taken away by Xavier's men just in time before she could lay her hands on me, alongside Enzo, who might probably be taken to the hospital later. Sorry for what happened, Beta Xavier, but believe me when I say she's untouched. My stepson hasn't laid a finger on her. My father said to my utter dismay. Was he really selling me off? We'll leave now, Richard. The Alpha will communicate with you on the agreed price. Freya, darling, he said, turning towards me. I was shocked as I heard my father call me with such an endearing name. What happened to being called a bastard, or an old dirty hag, or the bad unwanted child? I'll miss you, and be a good girl. I could see the smirk on his face and the mischief in his voice. I need no one to tell me he meant nothing about those words he had said, and he couldn't just wait to get rid of me. Xavier turned towards me. His brown eyes seemed to be boring into my soul. "Have you packed everything? We're leaving now." I only nodded. "Yes, sir." I didn't want to go with him. I know living with my father and his wife with her evil children was like living in hell. But these people who seemed to derive joy in skinning people alive, it would be more than hell. I was scared for my life. Xavier soon led me outside. As I stood for a while, glancing at the house I grew up in, I wondered how different it would have been with my mother around. Being sold was one of the cruelest things a father could do to his daughter. If I ever survive this, then I can survive anything else, I assured myself as I sat beside Xavier in the luxurious car waiting to take me my final destination, my new home. It's been 2 weeks since I arrived from the Silver Fang pack to the NorthRidge pack. I was taken care of and well fed, and I wondered if these were all a preparation before my death, which awaited me, or a normal ritual done whenever someone new arrives at their pack. As I sat in the room waiting for the Alpha's arrival, I tried to prepare myself for the worst. I didn't know what he wanted from me, but I had to give it to him. After all, he had paid to my father. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping up on me as I heard footsteps approaching. Was he here already? I asked myself, my heart pounding hard against my ribs. Would he be as cruel and evil as they said he was? Was he ugly like they've described? Suddenly, the heavy door creaked open, and a few maids who had been tending to me for the past few days sauntered in, followed by Beta Xavier. I took a sharp breath and clenched my hands, waiting for the most dreadful moment of my life. And just then, a tall figure entered my dimly lit room, even though the light was barely enough to have a good glimpse of him. And at that moment, I knew this man would be the death of me. Freya's Pav. He looked muscular with a chiseled jawline, a perfect creation. He moved with a swift, royal gait. His physical appearance was charming, and I found myself getting weak in the knees. He exhumed power and authority, and that seemed to intimidate me. Who's this man? 1, 2, 3. He took 3 steps and finally came to a halt in front of me, his hazel eyes piercing deep into my soul as if searching for something within. This was my first time seeing a man with hazel eyes, and how beautiful they looked on him. Is he really the evil Alpha everyone talks about? This man right here is near perfect, a wonderful work of art. I could hear my heart beating fast against my ribs. A deafening silence fell on the room, and everyone stood at alert. This was him, the Alpha of the NorthRidge pack, my new owner. She's the Omega, Alpha Logan. Xavier nodded, his head still bent out of respect. Logan? So that's his name? Alpha Logan cocked his head and gave me a quick stare before resting his gaze on Beta Xavier, with a look that signified he was expecting more words from him. She has been checked by the pack's nurse, Alpha. She will be fine in a week, this she had assured us. Without saying a word, he nodded, his gaze back on my body, lingering on my face for a while. He looked charming yet dangerous, and he reeked of an authority one wouldn't dare to challenge. His expression didn't change as he leaned forward, peering into my face. I could perceive his manly cologne, which filled my nostrils and clouded my senses, distracting me from the feeling of dread I was having earlier. I couldn't help but lean backwards as he moved very close to me, with just a few inches gap between us. "Look at me," he commanded, finally breaking the palpable tension in the air. His voice was deep and authoritative, and at the same time intimidating. Unable to meet his gaze, I had my head still hung low. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't bring myself to look into his intimidating hazel eyes. "When I say look at me, you do." I could swear his voice came as a growl this time, and not only I was shaken with fear, everyone else in the room was. "Put yourself together, Freya. Prepare yourself for the worst and focus on what's important," I thought to myself. Without any further delayment, I looked up, and my eyes met once again with the beautiful pair of hazel eyes. He had a slight frown on his face, but still he looked very handsome as the sun rays casted a warm sunset glow on his beautiful white skin. He must be an angel. He stared hard at me this time, and my heart raced with thought of what he might probably be thinking. Leaning forward, he raised an arm, and almost immediately I cradled my head, whimpering. My actions must have gotten him surprised because he had a confused look on his face. I've been abused for years, and I thought he was going to pounce on me like my father and Enzo had always done any time they raised their hands. But instead, he brushed away the single strand of hair that draped over my face as if to get a full view of me. I was shaken, scared of what might be the next outcome as he kept on staring at me. His gaze finally rested on my bruised neck, and from the corners of my eyes, I saw his brows furrowed together, forming a crease, a sign that he was not happy. I quickly pulled my cloth to cover my neck, but he brushed it away, rubbing his finger gently on the spot. At that moment, I felt shocks of indescribable, pleasurable feelings wash over me. Never ever in my life have I felt that way. What happened to you? Will he be returning me to my father because of the scars and bruises? She was hurt by her stepbrother. Beta Xavier's voice came. But rest assured, Alpha Logan, I already took care of the situation. I could sense the fear in his voice as he spoke. I had wanted to tell a lie, anything but not Enzo, who probably was still nursing the pain from weeks ago. Alpha Logan? I could hear the gasps of everyone in the room as I called his name, but I needed to be brave. I have been in the mansion for 2 weeks, yet I know not what I was supposed to do or my purpose for being there. Father had only told me I have been sold, but what's actually my purpose over here? He turned, and for a second I was scared of voicing out, but I told myself it was now or never. What's my purpose for coming here? I've been here for the past 2 weeks, and I know this is our first time seeing, but what's really my purpose? I was surprised at how courageous my composure was. He gazed at me, his expression unreadable. Didn't your father tell you the reason why you are here? He asked, shooting a puzzled look at Beta Xavier, who only shrugged. I shook my head. No, he didn't tell me anything. He walked towards me, not taking his eyes off me for even a second. I couldn't wait for him to be out of the room so I could finally breathe. Taking a seat beside me, his cologne filling up my nostrils again. He said in a tone I could nearly call a whisper, "But I paid millions of dollars just to have you here." $1 million? Just to have me here? Why? I don't understand, I said, scared of what his next words might be. Xavier spoke, his voice gentle but piercing. Your father used you as collateral to pay off his debt to the Alpha. I felt as though I'd been punched in the gut, my breath knocked out of me. The room spun, and Xavier's words echoed in my mind. My father? Sold me? I whispered, incredulity and horror warring within. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes as the truth sank in. My own father, the person who should have protected me, had used me as a pawn to clear his debt. I stumbled backward, needing space. Xavier's concerned expression only intensified my emotions. Why? I demanded, my voice shaking. Why would he do that? Xavier's hesitation spoke volumes. To bear me an heir. I bought you as a breeder. You'll be my breeder and bear my pups. The Alpha replied. His words hit me like a tidal wave, knocking the air from my lungs. I staggered, room spinning, vision blurring. Be breeder? I stammered, my voice barely audible. The Alpha's gaze locked onto mine, cold and unyielding. Yes, you'll bear me strong, healthy pups. Secure the future of our pack. My mind reeled in horror. Bought, breeder, pups. I felt reduced to a mere vessel, a tool for his desires. No, I whispered, shaking my head. The Alpha's expression darkened. You have no choice. You're mine now. A chill ran down my spine as he approached. Suddenly, Xavier's presence filled the space beside me. Alpha, perhaps. Silence, Beta. The Alpha growled. This doesn't concern you. Xavier's eyes locked onto mine, filled with a silent message. Breeder? Heir? He made money off me by selling me off to be a baby-making toy. I bit my lower lips as my heart raced with pain. My eyes turned moist, and even though I tried hard to act strong, the tears came falling. Freya's pav. Within a second, his hand came on my face, his fingers strong and firm, pressing hard, forcing my head up. Blood flowed to my face, making it turn red as he gazed at me. You don't have to cry. We aren't bad people. Just do your job and we'll both be fine. Why wouldn't I cry? My father had lied to me. He had deceived me, sold me off just for his own personal gains. A breeder. I just couldn't take the thoughts away. I had kept myself safe and undefiled just to be sold. I had dreamt of the day I would walk in a long flowing gown towards my fated mate under the full moon. But my father, my family had taken that away from me. No, please, I can't be your breeder, I can't do it, I begged, falling at his feet. Just let me do something else, let me be your maid. Let me work for you all my life, but please give me the chance to be with my real mate, to be defiled by him. Alpha Logan stood a few inches away from me, a mean and cold look on his face. His icy demeanor further gave him a meaner look, making me feel a sense of unease. I had protected myself for years from Enzo. It would be heartbreaking to finally give my virginity to someone as his breeder. I'll work for you and pay back every dime my father took from you. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Didn't you listen to me when I was talking? You can't pay back millions of dollars even if you work for the rest of your life. Beta Xavier said to me harshly, cutting me short. I looked around the room with pleading eyes, wishing anyone could come to my rescue, but they all just stood there, like a word from them could send their heads flying in the air. I crawled towards Beta Xavier, holding his leg firmly, my words coming out with sobs. I was tired already, weak and exhausted from crying, but the tears didn't stop. They flowed endlessly for as long as I laid there, unable to say a word. Please, Beta Xavier, you can't do this to me. You just can't. I finally spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. My gaze locked into the Alpha's eyes for a second, and I felt my heart racing with fear. His eyes had a cold, mean, angry look, as if waiting for the next moment to pounce on me and tear me apart, as if my tears and pleadings were a nuisance to his ears. Behind him was the door to my room, open and free. Without any hesitation, I dashed straight, heading for it. I would find any means to escape. I hadn't gone far when a strong pair of arms held me, pinning me to the floor. Stoop! No! Please let me go! I can't stay here! My voice was coarse. How fast were these people to have caught up with me in just a split seconds? How did you think you could run far in this weak state of yours? Alpha Logan asked, walking towards me with an angry look on his face. If he wanted, he could end my life there and then, and not even a single soul would say a word about it. I flinched, dragging my buttocks on the floor away from him. I didn't need such a cold-hearted alpha close to me. Turning to Beta Xavier, the next words he said sent my heart racing with an indescribable fear, a thought I had dreaded since I came here. Send her to my room at once. He took a short glance at me before walking out. But Alpha Logan? Xavier tried to be as polite as he could be. The pack's nurse said she isn't fit to conceive at the moment. Conceive? At the moment? What are these people going to do to me? My shoulders dropped in defeat as I sat on the floor, weak and hopeless. It finally dawned on me why I was chosen to be the breeder for the Alpha. As a rare hybrid, born to a witch mother and a werewolf father, I possessed untapped powers. My unique heritage made me an attractive choice for the Alpha's breeder, as my child would inherit extraordinary abilities. By producing an heir, I would ensure the Alpha's legacy surpassed his own strength, creating a potentially unstoppable successor. The Alpha sought me for my hybrid bloodline, hoping to create an heir with unmatched powers. My witch and werewolf heritage guaranteed exceptional abilities, making my child a valuable asset to solidify his pack's dominance. I will never find the love and care I wanted from my true mate. I am just a breeder, one born to bear the Alpha King and heir and live her life forever in misery. A young girl to be used as a tool to be discarded when there's no further use for her. This is the life my father wanted me to live, a life of pain and suffering. I looked up and saw that the Alpha had moved closer to me. His eyes squinted as he watched me squarely. His eyes were scary and his huge, tall figure towered above me, sending shivers down my spine. Nothing can be done, Freya. It's your fate, so take it. Beta Xavier's voice lacked any emotions in it as he continued. And don't think of running away, he added, rubbing the gun he had in his side pocket, a reminder of how quickly my life would be taken away if I did. My heart dropped to the bottom of my chest as the reality dawned on me. A slave I'll forever be to Alpha Logan, a slave! Bring her to my room in 5 days. The Alpha's thunderous voice rang out as he walked away. But what if I refuse? My question earned me a cold stare from him, making him stop right in his tracks and turning to meet my gaze. You won't ever be heard of. And your family, too, he growled. His eyes flashed with warning as he bent over to lift my head up. And as I looked at his beautiful hazel eyes, he continued, making sure his words sink into me as he rolled them out. They had a charming effect on me, even with his scary demeanor, and this, he didn't seem to know. I'll cut your body into pieces and bury them apart. I swallowed hard, my eyes glistening with tears as beads of sweat formed on my forehead. There was no way of escaping from this devil. The sooner I accept the truth, the better. I squared my shoulder and took his hands from my face, glaring at him without flinching. I needed to be brave. There will never be a Prince Charming for me. I will never have a mate, and this I needed to accept. And after I've given birth to an heir for you, what happens? After a short silence, he took a deep breath and stared at the door, his back turned towards me. That will be your choice to make. Either stay in NorthRidge Pack or you leave. Freya's POV. I've been staying in this new room for some days, and I was meant to meet Alpha Logan. However, he has been elusive, and I'm starting to get bored. This place doesn't feel like home, but at least I'm not getting abused daily, as long as I behave. I don't even remember what a home feels like. It's been a long time since I felt like I had one. The door to my room creaks open, and Elena walks in. She's my new friend and caretaker, taking care of all the breeders here. Nobody would want to foofk you with that look on your face, she says, pointing out my sour expression. I let out an amused chuckle in response. Maybe I don't want to get fucked, I say with a dry chuckle, my mouth beginning to sour. Elena rolls her eyes. The Alpha wants to see you. Let's get you ready, she says. My heart sinks, but I comply. I don't have the strength to fight, but a small part of me feels alive at the thought. In no time, I'm dressed and my hair is styled neatly. I'm wearing a black lingerie set and a robe. When I look at my reflection in the mirror, I know there's no escape from this fate. Just give him a child and I'll be done. Soon I find myself standing before a large golden door that leads to his place. I push it open, my heart pounding so loudly that I can barely hear my thoughts. I see another door, probably his office. I'm about to knock when I notice it's open. He must be expecting me. I knock, keeping my head bowed. Come in, his deep voice calls out, making me almost choke on my own heartbeat. Taking cautious steps, I walk in and gently shut the door. My eyes stay fixed on the floor, but I can feel his cold, commanding gaze burning into my face. You called for me, Alpha, I manage to say, my voice trembling slightly despite my best efforts. Come here, his voice demands, and I hear the faint sound of him patting his lap. I swallow, wanting to resist, but his voice carries a subtle warning. I find myself walking to him. A gasp escapes my lips as he pulls me by the hands, and I fall into his lap. His thick, cold hands grip the back of my neck, sending goosebumps down my spine. Don't you know it's rude to not look at someone when they're talking to you? His voice reprimands, and I stiffen. I'm sorry, Alpha, I say, still not meeting his gaze. Look at me, Freya, he commands, his voice leaving no room for argument. I feel his hand on my chin, forcing my gaze to meet his. Time seems to stand still as I gaze into his hazel eyes, which are simultaneously warm and cold, alluring and frightening. He's working some kind of seduction spell on me, and I'm trapped. Snap out of it, Freya, I tell myself. Are you going to kill me? I manage to ask, breaking the spell for a moment. His voice is rough when he replies, Why would I do that? If I give you an heir, would you really let me go? I ask, my eyes flickering to his sharp jawline. I'm envious of his beauty. Instead of answering my question, his hand brushes through my hair, sending a wave of pleasure through my body. You talk a lot, he murmurs, still not giving me an answer. I'm sorry, I whisper, the words barely escaping my lips. I can't read this man, and I know he's dangerous. I'm willing to be submissive as long as it keeps me alive. After all, I've been tortured before. What's a little more? I remind myself to be strong, to survive. That's all that matters. You look tense. Freya, he says. I'm not going to hurt you. He pauses, then adds, yet. My heart sinks at his ominous words. I try to distract myself from his hand on my thigh, but he holds my gaze, making it impossible to look away. His hands move to my neck, almost choking me as he takes in my scent. My stomach churns and I feel sick. He is toying with me, playing some kind of twisted game. I must stay strong, even though I'm scared. Tears blur my vision as I realize where this is going, and I don't want it. I don't want his touch on me. I don't want him. Please, I don't want to do this, I mumble, tears spilling down my face. He looks at me, unimpressed, and my heart races even faster. You don't have a choice, he says coldly. Stand, he commands, and I stand up, his gaze raking over my body. His eyes speak volumes that I don't understand. I feel exposed, vulnerable, as he studies me. The silence stretches on, my heart beating faster with each passing second. Finally, he speaks. Beautiful, he says, his voice filled with admiration. Come here. My legs feel like jelly as I move towards him, fear and disgust warring within me. He stands, his hand reaching out to brush my cheek. Don't worry, he says, his voice low and dangerous. I'll make this good for you. His question catches me off guard. How many men have touched you? My throat tightens. Does being abused count as being touched? None, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. He chuckles dryly. You're a bad liar, Freya. The way my name rolls off his tongue sends a shiver down my spine. I'm not lying, Alpha, I insist. Strip, he commands, his voice icy. What? I ask, disbelief coloring my voice. Take off your clothes, Freya, he says, his tone darkening. Or do you want me to do it for you? I tremble, knowing that either way I'll be naked in front of him, exposed and vulnerable. I hated myself for it. I hate him. Logan's POV. I can do it myself, she stammers, but her hands are not moving. My patience is already wearing thin. I rise to my feet, watching as she stumbles back, clearly intimidated by my presence. I love it. Her fear makes me happy. My hand snaps out, grabbing her waist and pulling her to me. She's tiny compared to me, easy to break, easy to hurt. You will do as I say, Freya, I growl, my voice dripping with authority. I feel her skin, soft and supple, under my palms. She's different, something about her that might consume me. Her big eyes are full of fear, but there's also defiance there, a spark of hatred that only fuels my desire. My hands trail down her back, feeling her tense under my touch. You love pushing boundaries, don't you? I ask, my voice low and dangerous. She manages to shake her head, but I know she's lying. My hand closes around her neck, the intoxicating scent of coconut and honey filling my nostrils. A groan escapes my lips as my hands find the top of her lingerie. Without a thought, I tore it from her body, and a gasp escaped her lips. She tries to cover herself, but her small hands are unable to conceal what's been exposed. Her milky white skin and the little scars that mark her body make my eyes darken. Xavier had mentioned that her family seemed abusive. She's left in her red panties and bra, a matching set that could make any man fall to his knees. She's something else. I grab her neck and pull her to me, our bodies colliding. My hands cradle her face, my mouth trailing down from her cheeks to her neck, leaving a trail of kisses in its wake. She tries to push me away, but I'm not about to stop. She's mine now, and I'm going to make her understand that. I love the way she responds to my touch, her body tense with a mix of fear and arousal. My hands slide down her thighs and she tries to close them, but I force them open. Her lips part in surprise, and the sight of them makes my blood rush to my groin. I take her lips in mine, and she's shocked, but I don't care. Her mouth is warm and dangerous, sweet yet poisonous. I'm intoxicated by her, by the way she makes me feel alive. I explore her mouth, tasting her sweetness, my tongue teasing hers. My hands roam her body, my fingertips tracing her curves. I want to possess her, to claim her as my own. I break the kiss and step back, looking her up and down. Freya, I murmur, my voice low and rough. You will be mine. Understand? She nods, her eyes still wide with fear and desire. I tug on her hair, tilting her head back, exposing her neck. I lean down, my lips finding her pulse point. She's inexperienced, I can tell by the way she tries to match my kisses, but falls short. I suck on her lower lip, my hand moving up her thighs, and I can already smell her arousal, the scent filling the air. I wonder if she's aware of how wet she is for me. I pull away from the kiss, and her little growl of disappointment only makes me smirk. Such a bad kisser, I mutter. She glares at me, her breathing still ragged. I like her fire, the way she doesn't back down. The worst, I repeat, my thumb resting on her pouting lips. Displeasure flashes in her eyes. I kiss her neck, my lips exploring the delicate skin. Her body tenses at first, but soon she's melting into my touch, a shameless little thing. A moan escapes her lips, and she tries to keep it in by biting her lip. I don't like that, not at all. I want to hear every little sound she makes, every moan and whimper that tells me she's mine. My wolf growls his approval, but I'm too focused on Freya to pay him any attention. I block him out, determined to focus on her. I pull her towards the desk in my office, placing her on it, and part her legs. Her arousal fills the air, and I can see the wetness on her panties. My fingers brush softly against her panties, and she shivers. She's trying to hide her desire, but I can see it in the way her body responds to my touch. She wants this, even if she won't admit it. "So wet for me," I murmur, noticing her attempt to close her legs and hide her wetness. "Close your legs one more time, and I will leave you with none," I threaten, my voice a low growl. My words seem to have an effect on her, as she keeps her legs spread wide open. I lean down, capturing her lips in a deep kiss that leaves us both breathless. I take a step back, taking in her trembling form on my desk. She's mine, whether she wants to be or not. "Remove your underwear and bra," I command, my voice firm. Her face flushes and she starts to protest. "Alpha," she begins, but I cut her off. "Don't make me do it, Freya. You're mine, whether you like it or not, and there's nothing anyone can do about it." Her gaze is full of defiance, but she knows better than to argue. Slowly, she reaches up and unfastens her bra, letting it fall to the floor. Then, she slides her panties down her legs. She's trying to cover herself, but I won't have it. She climbs off the desk, her hands fumbling to unhook her bra. I notice the tears in her eyes, but I can't bring myself to care. There's something dark and twisted within me that revels in her vulnerability. "Faster," I growl, and her gaze meets mine. She looks away quickly, but successfully unhooks her bra, freeing her perky breasts. They are perfectly proportioned for her petite frame. I want to touch her, to feel her skin against mine. "The panties," I mutter, my gaze never leaving her. She complies without a word, but by the time she's finished, tears are streaming down her face. She's already a mess, and her crying begins to irritate me. Not because of her tears, but because I want to make her cry more. I want to break her and then put her back together in my image. I move closer, the heat of her body palpable as I reach out and trail a finger down her cheek, gathering a tear. She stands before me completely naked, but I refuse to look at her. "Get out," I say, not even turning to face her. "Huh?" she mumbles, confusion clear in her voice. "Pick up your clothes and get out of my office," I say, keeping my back to her as I approach the beer case. I need a drink to calm the storm raging inside of me. I can sense her hurried movements as she gathers her clothes. By the time I turn back with a glass of wine in hand, the door is already shutting behind her. She hides a lot behind that innocent facade, that fake smile. I'm amused by her. Finally, a little toy to play with, a puzzle to unravel. She doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to make her mine, in every way that counts. Freya's POV, I hate him. I hate the way he makes me feel. I drop my clothes on the floor and stand naked in front of the mirror. I've never felt this insecure in my life. Sure, my stepmother would constantly tell me how ugly and disgusting I was, but I never truly believed her. Logan, though. He makes me feel small and insignificant. He's the alpha, the most powerful werewolf in the pack, and I'm nothing compared to him. And yet, I can't deny the way my body responds to his touch. Insecurity consumes me. I feel ugly and insignificant compared to Logan. How dare he kiss me, strip me, make me vulnerable, just to look at me with disgust, as if I'm the most repulsive creature he's ever seen. That look, I can't get it out of my head. And yet, it makes me crave his validation even more. I know I shouldn't care about what he thinks of me, but I do. I want him to see me, really see me, and I want him to want me. His touch still lingers on my skin, like a heavenly caress that was snatched away too soon. I groan, stepping into the bathroom and starting the shower. The hot water cascades over my body, washing away the remnants of his touch, but the memory lingers, etched into my flesh. My mind and body are at war, craving his touch, even as I resent it. I can still taste him on my lips, feel the ghost of his fingers on my skin, and it drives me mad. Being given freedom to roam the pack grounds is a small comfort. Everyone seems to avoid me, but I'm grateful for it. I prefer to keep to myself anyway. I've decided to go on runs every night, hoping to connect with my inner wolf. Xavier has given me permission as long as I stay within the pack borders. My legs carry me as I run, my heart pounding in my chest. The sweat drips from my body, but I keep going, lost in my thoughts. My mind oscillates between Logan and my father, between my role as a breeder and my interactions with the alpha. It's been 2 days since he last touched me, but his presence lingers in my mind, taunting me. I'm so lost in thought that I don't notice the hand that suddenly grabs me, yanking me backward. My back collides with a tree trunk, the impact jolting me out of my reverie. "What the hell?" I exclaim, the shock of the sudden contact making my head spin. But before I can react, I find myself pinned against the tree by Alpha Logan. His hazel eyes bore into mine, piercing my soul. My heart beats faster than ever, the sound surely audible to his enhanced senses. I hate that he can sense my vulnerability, my fear and desire all at once. "Why are you out here at this time?" he demands, his voice low and rough. "You scared me," I manage to say, my voice shaky. He continues to stare at me, waiting for an answer to his question. I clear my throat. "I just wanted to take a run," I say, trying to sound calm and in control. But he isn't having it. "You're wolfless," he says bluntly, his words a gut punch. "Rude." "Yeah, I am," I mumble, my voice small. "I'm not proud of being wolfless, a hybrid who can't fully embrace either side of herself." "Shameful," he mutters, his breath hot against my skin. The word stings, a reminder of how I'm not good enough. I just want to be accepted, but that seems unlikely, especially in a pack ruled by a powerful alpha like Logan. I swallow hard, trying not to let my emotions show. He chuckles and takes a step back, and suddenly I can breathe again. Logan grabs my hand, not even glancing in my direction, and we walk deeper into the forest. The silence between us is different than before, no longer tense but peaceful. We walk for what feels like miles until my legs begin to ache. "Bobu, where are we going?" I ask, wincing in pain. Logan glances down at my feet, and a frustrated groan escapes his lips. Before I can protest, his arms wrap around me, lifting me up in a bridal carry. My eyes widen in shock, and I look up at him, but he remains stoic and unreadable. He may look annoyed to be carrying me, but I don't mind. My legs are grateful for the break. "I never knew you were a gentleman," I murmur, a small smile playing on my lips. His gaze flickers in my direction, but his expression remains impassive. "Piccola, if you don't stop talking, I will drop you," he warns, his voice a low growl. "Piccola?" I repeat, curious about the unfamiliar word. He ignores me, and soon we reach a clearing where the moonlight pierces through the canopy of trees. He sets me down gently on a large rock, his movements precise and controlled. I stare at him as he gazes up at the sky, his face bathed in the ethereal moonlight. Curiosity getting the better of me, I look up too, and I'm breathless at the sight. The moon is full and radiant, surrounded by a sea of twinkling stars. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he asks, not even glancing in my direction. "Yes, Alpha," I say, still awestruck by the view. His gaze shifts to me, and I feel myself tensing under his cold stare. "Are your feet still hurting?" he asks. I search his face, trying to discern any hint of concern, but his expression remains guarded. "They're feeling better now," I reply, finding it difficult to meet his gaze. He nods, and I can't help but wonder what he's thinking. Why did he bring me here? Is he planning on doing something, or did he simply want to share this moment with me? He nods and sits next to me, pulling me closer so I'm perched on his lap. I look at him, my expression a mix of confusion and apprehension. "This is my secret place," he whispers in my ear. "I come here to clear my head." "It's beautiful," I say, a small smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. "I see why you like it here." The alpha doesn't respond, but I can feel his body relax slightly beneath me. "This place would be perfect for our first time," he whispers, his breath tickling my ear. "But I'm sweaty," I protest. Suddenly self-conscious, "Get on your knees, Piccola," he commands, his voice low and authoritative. My body seems to move of its own accord, dropping to the ground before him. He grabs my face, his fingers grazing my lips. I can see the hunger in his eyes, like a wolf preparing to devour its prey. "You're going to show me what those lips of yours can do," he growls, his hand still holding my face. I glare at him, my mind reeling. I'd always imagined my first time in a beautiful candle-lit bedroom, or maybe in the seclusion of the forest. Never in a million years did I think I'd be getting fucked in the open air, with the stars and moon as our only witnesses. Freya's POV. My feet pounded against the hard, uneven ground as I fled into the night. My vision was blurry, the stars and moon seemingly following my every movement. Fear coursed through my veins, the sound of my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I was running, faster than I thought possible, as if something, or someone, was hunting me. A feline voice whispered in my head, its honeyed tones sending shivers down my spine. The voice was both seductive and sinister, drawing me deeper into the darkness. But suddenly, everything became a blur of agony and terror. A piercing scream tore from my throat, the pain unbearable as my body contorted and twisted, my bones breaking and bending. I fell to the ground, writhing in agony, tears streaming down my face. It was as if 1,000 pins were being driven into my skin, each puncture sending new waves of agony through me. As I lay helpless on the cold, hard earth, I caught a glimpse of my reflection. My eyes widened in horror, but before I could scream, I felt a sharp pain on my cheeks. As my heart continued to hammer in my chest, I realized that the pain, the claws, the feline voice, it had all been a nightmare. Sitting up in bed, I surveyed my surroundings, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. Sweat clung to my skin, my body still trembling from the terror of my dream. But as my mind slowly began to calm, my thoughts turned to what had happened the night before. A blush spread across my face as I recalled the intensity of Logan's passion, his rough hands claiming my body. I was sore. My mouth twisted into a sarcastic smirk as I muttered under my breath, "A little tenderness wouldn't have killed him, would it?" The memories of last night's encounter with Logan still raw and fresh, the undeniable pleasure mixed with pain, now an ache in my bones. I grabbed my hand mirror, the familiar reflection of my face staring back at me. Except this time, something was different. My eyes had turned red, a wolf-like creature staring back at me with a snarling intensity. "What? What is this?" I whispered, my voice trembling as I dropped the mirror, 1,000 pinpricks of pain stabbing through my body. "What the actual hell?" I muttered, shaking my head in disbelief as I tried to process the impossible transformation that had just occurred. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt different, not just physically, but mentally too. Stronger, yet heavier somehow. Groaning, I managed to get to my feet, my sore muscles protesting the effort. In the mirror, my naked body was a mess of bruises and bite marks, the remnants of last night's encounter with Logan. And with the memory of my shamefully needy pleas fresh in my mind, a scowl twisted my face. That was humiliating, I muttered, bitterness coating my words. My ears pricked up, straining for any hint of sound. Though there was no one visible in the hallway, I could sense the presence of someone else, their footsteps echoing in my mind. As I reached for the door to the bathroom, a sharp knock reverberated through the room, louder and more urgent than usual. My nose twitched, picking up the familiar scent of Elena. What in the ever-loving hell is happening to me? I mumbled under my breath, my heartbeat thundering in my chest. With a deep breath, I willed myself to calm down, then opened the door to let Elena in. Her eyes widened, practically devouring my barely covered body. "Looks like the Alpha really feasted on you," she said with a playful smirk, making me flush with embarrassment. "How do you feel?" My fingers fiddled with the edge of the towel, feeling more self-conscious with every passing moment. I'm not sure," I admitted, shifting uncomfortably under Elena's gaze. "I feel different, like there's something inside me that wasn't there before." Elena's grin widened, her eyes glinting with mischief. "Oh, sweetie, there was something inside you," she drawled, her tone teasing. "Elena!" I snapped, exasperation tinging my tone, but her laughter only grew louder. "Oh, come on, Freya. Admit it," she teased, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "Those bite marks are a clear indication that you're Alpha's territory now. He staked his claim on you, whether you like it or not." I rolled my eyes, my embarrassment turning into annoyance. "Whatever. Look, Elena, what do you want?" I asked, trying to focus on the present rather than my heightened senses. "Don't try to deny it," Elena said, waggling her eyebrows playfully. "You loved every minute of it." Despite myself, I couldn't help but chuckle. All right, I conceded, but right now I need to get dressed and freshen up. We've got breakfast to attend." Elena nodded with a grin before turning to leave. As I stepped into the shower, the water cascaded down my skin, washing away the lingering traces of Logan. As I brushed my damp hair in front of the bathroom mirror, I felt a sudden, sharp jolt of pain. "Fuck!" I muttered, my hand flying to my head as I winced. But just as quickly as it came, the pain vanished, replaced by a gentle, soothing voice. "Hello, Freya. I am Alexa, your wolf." I froze, my eyes wide with surprise as I processed the words. My wolf?" I stammered, feeling a little absurd talking to myself. I didn't know I had a wolf. What? What's going on?" I exclaimed, thoroughly confused. I scanned the room, but there was no one else there. It was just me, my towel, and the voice in my head. "I am your wolf, Freya," the voice repeated calmly. "I am delighted to finally meet you." My mouth dropped open in shock before a joyous scream erupted from my lips. I leapt into Elena's arms, wrapping her in a tight hug. "Elena!" I shouted, my excitement spilling over. "I have a wolf! I have a wolf!" "I got my wolf!" I repeated, beaming with excitement. "I got my wolf, Elena, and her name is Alexa." Elena laughed, shaking her head in amusement. "Congratulations, Freya," she said, grinning ear to ear. "No more of that wolfless bullshit. You're an official member of the pack now." I joined in her laughter, feeling lighter than I had in ages. It was as though a missing piece of myself had finally been found. "You can go now, Elena," I said with a playful grin. "I'm not in danger, I promise. I just need to chat with Alexa." Elena chuckled, rolling her eyes. "Rude," she muttered, a smile playing at her lips as she left the room. Once the door closed behind her, I spoke up again, addressing the wolf inside me. "Alexa?" I smiled, feeling the soothing nature of Alexa's voice wash over me. "When did you wake up?" I asked, curious. "I've been awake for hours now," she responded, her tone laced with amusement. "You just weren't paying attention." I shook my head, a chuckle escaping my lips. "Guess I was a little preoccupied," I admitted. "Still, I'm glad you're finally here. I've waited so long for this." A hint of longing entered my voice as I continued. "I hope we find our mate soon, so we can escape this fate." Freya's POV. As Elena led me out of my room, the whirlwind of emotions inside me was making my head spin. One part of me wanted to see Logan again, while another was terrified at the thought. The uncertainty about what last night meant to him was tearing at my heart. It meant so much to me, I thought to myself. He was my first everything. My first kiss, my first. A blush crept up my cheeks at the memory of his touch, but still, the doubts lingered. The dining room came into view, and my eyes were immediately drawn to Logan like a moth to a flame. He was conversing with Xavier, his presence radiating power and magnetism. Elena seemed to be saying something, but I was lost in Logan's presence, my mind a jumble of thoughts and emotions. "Freya, there you are," Xavier said with a blank expression, approaching me. I forced a smile to my face, the smile faltering under the weight of my internal struggle. His gaze shifted to meet mine, but there was nothing in his eyes. No warmth, no recognition, nothing. We locked eyes for what felt like an eternity, my heart pleading for some sign that he felt the same connection I did, but his expression remained cold and impassive. Without a word, Logan turned away, striding out of the dining room as if I didn't even exist. The hurt that bloomed in my chest was like a punch to the gut. But I don't blame him. I blame myself for expecting too much. "Let's get you some food," Xavier said, his eyes raking over me as if he could see something beyond what was visible to the naked eye. Nodding with a forced smile, I sat down as food was served. My appetite was ravenous after the stress of Logan's indifference. The dining room fell silent, with Xavier speaking only occasionally to Elena, who stood at my side like a silent sentinel. My thoughts wandered back to Logan, his icy detachment replaying in my mind over and over. Why does he affect me so much, I wondered. "Something smells different about you," Xavier observed, his tone curious. Elena's eyes danced with amusement, but I kept my expression neutral. "Oh, just a change of soap, I guess," I said nonchalantly, digging into my food as though nothing was amiss. Xavier nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer, and the meal continued in relative silence. At last, breakfast was over. I felt a rush of relief at the prospect of leaving the tense atmosphere. As I stood to make my exit, Elena shot me a knowing look, her smile hinting at the secret we shared. As I strolled through the packed grounds, Alexa's voice buzzed in my head, her excitement palpable. "I can smell him," she whispered, her excitement growing with every step I took. I paused for a moment, letting her words sink in, when suddenly she exclaimed, "Mate!" My skin prickled with goosebumps as the word echoed through my mind. My senses sharpened, my nose picking up the faintest whiff of sandalwood. "Mate is close," Alexa repeated, her words causing my pulse to quicken. "You mean my mate is a member of this pack?" I asked, feeling a mix of trepidation and anticipation building inside me. "Yes, he's here," Alexa's rang with enthusiasm, urging me to move towards the scent that was drawing us closer. But as I took a few steps, doubt crept into my mind. Wait, I thought to myself, I'm just a breeder in this pack. Finding my mate could put him in danger. What if Alpha Logan decides to eliminate him as a threat to his authority? Freya, Alexa urged, her desperation palpable in the space between us. No, Alexa, I said firmly. It doesn't matter. But as I turned to head back to my room, her voice rang out again, more insistent this time. Mate, you need to find him. I felt myself faltering, my resolve weakening as she pleaded with me. Without realizing it, I found myself striding towards the woods, following the tantalizing scent that was leading me deeper into the forest. My steps quickened as Alexa's anticipation rose, leading me deeper into the forest. The scent of sandalwood grew stronger, my heart racing as I realized that I was drawing closer to my mate, and then I saw him. From behind the shelter of a massive tree, I watched as he transformed into a magnificent wolf, his fur glistening in the sunlight. Mate, Alexa whispered, her longing pulling at me. She wanted me to step out of my hiding place and reveal myself to him, but I fought against her, trying to block out her fervor. No, this can't be, I muttered under my breath, my heart beating so hard I was sure it would burst from my chest. Go to mate. Go to mate. Alexa howled, her voice a feral echo in my mind, but I knew in my heart that I wasn't ready to face him, to confront the truth of what my wolf was telling me. Logan couldn't be my mate. The consequences of that would be too grave. He was already the bane of my existence. To be bound to him in such a way would be the end of me. With all the strength I could muster, I turned away from the forest and ran. I ran back to the pack, back to my room, ignoring Alexa's desperate pleas to return to my mate. Alone in my room, I paced back and forth, my thoughts whirling like a tempest. I can't do this, I whispered to myself, my voice cracking with emotion. But the more I fought against it, the more the pull of my mate consumed me. The fear of rejection gnawed at me, a dark shadow in the depths of my soul. He would reject me in a heartbeat, I muttered to myself. I am not good enough for him. His rejection. Just the thought of it was enough to make me tremble. To know that the one person I was destined to be with would turn away from me without a second thought was more than I could bear. I can't handle his rejection, I whispered, my heart breaking, even before he had a chance to break it himself. Logan's POV. I'm obsessed, or at least I think I am. The way Freya has burrowed under my skin, into my very being, is something I can't explain, and it terrifies me. After our night together, I haven't been able to get her out of my mind. I thought that claiming her body would help me to purge her from my thoughts, but it's had the opposite effect. I crave more of her, like a man possessed. It amazes me how a woman can have such power over me. Her skin was like silk beneath my fingertips, the warmth of her radiating into my palms. She slept peacefully, a look of serenity on her face that belied the turmoil she so often hid behind a facade of smiles and defiance. Her cheeks were flushed with the shadows of her lashes, lips ripe and inviting. The urge to take her, to devour her until there was nothing left to taste, was almost irresistible. I knew I shouldn't be there. I shouldn't be in her room, my touch inappropriate. Alpha? She murmured, her voice laced with a hint of sleepiness as she blinked her eyes open. The shock of finding me in her room was palpable, but she recovered quickly, letting out a small yawn as she sat up, careful not to meet my gaze. Do you usually sleep like a dead dog? I asked, my voice heavy with annoyance. The way she avoided my stare was almost a challenge, goading me to reach out and grab her by the neck, forcing her to meet my gaze. She mumbled an apology, her hands running through her thick hair in a gesture that was almost tantalizing. The urge to wrap her strands around my fingers and pull, making her moan my name, was almost overwhelming. How long have you been here? She asked, her voice soft and tired. Long enough to see how deeply you sleep, I retorted, settling myself on the edge of her bed and patting my lap. I want her, my wolf growled, the primal desire to claim Freya almost overpowering. I scoffed and leaned back against the bed, commanding her with a single word. Sit. My hand tapped the space on my lap, beckoning her closer. She hesitated, as if waging a battle within herself. But eventually she rose from the bed and positioned herself on my lap. The scent of her, strong and intoxicating, engulfed my senses, heightening my desire to possess her completely. The scent that emanated from her was different, almost alien to my senses. And yet, deep down, I knew what it was. Still, I chose to deny the truth, burying it deep within my consciousness. "You smell different," I remarked, my tone giving nothing away. "Probably the soap," she replied with a forced chuckle, her attempt at deception weak and transparent. "Such a bad lair." "Don't do that," I warned, my voice hushed but dangerous. "What?" she whispered, her breath catching in her throat as my hands caressed her face, sending a shiver down her spine. "Lie to me," I growled, the words leaving my lips with a feral edge. "I'm not lying," she protested weakly, a flush spreading across her cheeks. The desire to punish her, to bend her to my will, burned within me like a raging inferno, but I held back, savoring the fear that was visible in her eyes. "Piccola," I purred, my voice low and threatening. "Do you know what I do to liars?" "Are you going to kill me, Alpha Logan?" she retorted, her defiance palpable in the air between us. The fire in her eyes only stoked the flame of my desire for her. "Do you want me to?" I asked, my thumb caressing her lip, the taste of her skin on the tip of my tongue. "Maybe," she said, her voice faltering. "This is hell, after all." "Being mine?" I asked, a smirk tugging at the corners of my lips. "Being your breeder," she clarified, her gaze burning with defiance as she glared at me. "You don't have a choice, Piccola," I said, my hand tightening around her chin. "You're mine, whether you like it or not." "That's why it feels like hell," she replied, her words cold and unfeeling. "That's perfect." I muttered, my grip on her neck tightening as I pulled her closer, crushing my lips against hers. Her initial shock only served to fuel my desire as I devoured her with a fierce intensity. Her lips and tongue offered a weak resistance, but it was no match for the ferocity of my kiss. I wanted to explore every inch of her mouth, to claim her completely. And when my tongue brushed against her lower lip, a soft moan escaped from her throat. A sweet surrender that only increased my hunger for her. The sound of her moan was like a drug, addictive and all-consuming. I wanted more, needed more. My hand roamed over her body, mapping out the contours of her curves as my lips left her mouth to explore the delicate skin of her neck. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps as my teeth grazed her skin. The electricity between us a palpable thing. But just as she began to surrender herself to me, her body melting against mine, she suddenly tensed, her hands pushing at my chest. "Stop," she whispered, her voice a mere thread of sound. Pulling away, I allowed her a moment to catch her breath as I gently unbuckled her hair, letting the strands fall loose around her shoulders. My voice was cold and measured as I spoke, a mask of indifference hiding the turmoil within me. "Pray that I fuck you enough to get you pregnant, because I won't want to touch your filthy body after that," I said, watching as tears welled up in her eyes. "Elena will help you get dressed," I continued, my voice betraying no emotion as I rose from the bed. "We have a party to attend." The door to my study room reverberated as I slammed it shut, my anger boiling just beneath the surface. The mere thought of her, of Freya, sent my wolf into a frenzy, a hurricane of emotions swirling within me. She couldn't be my destiny. I refused to believe it. She was nothing more than a breeder, a toy to be played with, broken and molded into whatever form I desired. With a deep breath, I attempted to steel myself against the storm raging inside me. Clad in a simple black shirt and pants, I made my way to the great hall. Xavier approached me, his voice low and deferential. "Alpha, the car is ready." "How crazy do you think this party will be?" I asked, my mind already wandering to the impending chaos. "The party?" Xavier replied with a nervous chuckle, his eyes darting around the room. "Let's hope we make it through with only a few heads on the chopping block." I fixed him with an unimpressed stare, an icy chill in my gaze. For reasons known only to him, Xavier always seemed to believe that death was never far behind me. Freya appeared at the top of the stairs, resplendent in a flowing yellow gown that seemed to glow with a light all its own. For a moment I was transfixed, caught in her golden spell. But then, Xavier began to speak, a stream of words about the party that I couldn't seem to focus on. My eyes wandered back to Freya, only to find her perfect visage marred by a frown, her cheeks stained with red. Lucia stood before her, as her cloth dropped with red, Freya's POV. A blonde woman, dressed in a sleek black dress, collided with me, sending a splash of red wine over my pristine gown. She barely offered an apology. I couldn't help but feel that the incident was no accident. The chill in her eyes and the satisfied smirk on her lips as she walked away spoke volumes. With Elena's help, I slipped into a new gown, styling my hair into loose waves and allowing a few strands to frame my face. The makeup was quick but effective, banishing all signs of the earlier mishap. As I left my room, the sickle-shaped pendant at my throat felt like a talisman, warding off any more clumsy blonde encounters. I walked with purpose, the soft swish of my gown the only sound to accompany me as I traversed the hallways to where Logan's car awaited. The night air was crisp, the moonlight glinting off the car's polished surface. Being near Logan was like stepping into the path of a hurricane. The force of his presence was palpable, the thrum of his energy reverberating against my skin. My heart thumped in a wild, erratic rhythm, my inner wolf pacing and howling in a frenzy. I fought to keep her at bay, to deny the undeniable bond that tugged at my soul, begging me to acknowledge Logan as my mate. But he showed no sign of recognition, no flicker of awareness in his gaze. Was he oblivious to the fire that burned between us? Or was he simply masterful at concealing his true emotions? Xavier's voice cut through the tension. "She is here, Alpha." "Hi," I mumbled, my gaze focused on my shoes. But I could feel Logan's stare like a brand on my back, his presence a magnetic pull that was impossible to ignore. "She drives with me," Logan said, his voice curt and decisive. Xavier nodded and left, leaving me alone with Logan. The car was our own private world, the silence a charged silence that hummed with anticipation. With my wolf urging me to surrender to the primal need for Logan, I fought to maintain a semblance of composure. "Come here," he growled, his voice commanding and alluring. I found myself drawn to him, the pull of his alpha demanding my compliance. As I neared, he seized me in a firm, possessive grip. His lips brushed against my ear, a whisper that sent a shiver down my spine. "You look tempting, Freya. Almost too tempting." Logan's voice was a low rumble that sent a shiver down my spine. "Get in the car, Freya." His command was impossible to ignore, and I complied without hesitation. The silence in the car was suffocating, the unspoken desires and emotions palpable in every passing moment. The tension was a smoldering flame, a blend of want and hate that threatened to consume us both. The taut atmosphere in the car was charged with electricity, the palpable hunger between them no longer containable. As Logan's gaze met mine, a silent invitation hung in the air, a promise of the inevitable. Our lips collided in a frenzy of passion, our mouths moving against each other with the fervor of two souls that were bound by fate. The kiss was a dance of fire and ice, a battle for control and submission. I could feel my wolf reveling in the touch, the taste of Logan igniting every nerve ending in my body. My pulse raced as Logan's hands roamed over my body, his touch a scorching heat that left me breathless. My hands clutched his shirt, the fabric bunching in my fists as our bodies molded together, a perfect fit that defied the friction between us. But as the passion intensified, the awareness of the true nature of our union began to weigh on me. I was nothing more than a captive, a plaything for Logan's pleasure, and yet my heart and my body were surrendering to his dominance, a prisoner of my own desires. "You want me," Logan growled, his voice low and laced with hunger. "Don't deny it." My breath caught in my throat, my lips parting in a silent gasp. I struggled to find the words, my resistance crumbling beneath his seductive gaze. "I don't know." His eyes gleamed in the dim light of the car, a predatory gleam that sent a thrill of excitement and fear racing through my veins. "Liar," he whispered, a smirk curling his lips. "Your body speaks the truth." His hands were a symphony of control, his fingers nimbly undoing the buttons of my dress with a precision that made my skin tingle. "We're going to play a little game," he purred, his voice low and dangerous. "For every moan or whimper you let escape, I'm going to rip a piece of your clothing off." My heart thundered in my chest, a mixture of trepidation and excitement. Before I could protest, he had pushed me down onto the seat, my back arching as he buried his face between my thighs. The world dissolved into a blur of sensation, Logan's tongue skillfully exploring every inch of my folds, teasing and tasting until I was writhing with need. I bit back a moan, determined not to surrender to his game, but it was impossible to resist the tantalizing rhythm of his touch. His fingers danced over my skin, sending a cascade of electric shivers down my spine. Stop fighting it, he whispered against my core, his breath hot and inviting. Give in to me, Freya. And with a final, desperate cry, I did just that. The barrier between us collapsed, my body and soul surrendering to the primal magnetism that bound us together. As Logan ravaged my body with his tongue, his hands began to tear at my clothing, shredding the delicate fabric like a wolf tearing into its prey. My moans grew more frequent, my breaths coming in short, sharp gasps as he plunged his fingers inside me, his touch driving me to the brink of madness. Look at you, he growled, his eyes smoldering with desire as he looked upon the ravaged remains of my clothing. So fucking beautiful. I writhed beneath him, my body aching for release, my moans growing into desperate cries as he played my body like a finely tuned instrument. Please, I begged, the word escaping my lips in a whimper. Please, Logan. I need. But my plea fell on deaf ears as he pulled away, a wicked grin on his lips. Not yet, he purred, his gaze glittering with amusement. I want to hear you beg for it. My eyes widened, a mix of frustration and desire coursing through my veins. Please. I whimpered, my body trembling with need. Please, Alpha. But he only smirked, his eyes alight with cruel pleasure. No, he said, his voice icy and dismissive. You can satisfy yourself. I've had my fill. My heart sank as he stepped away, my body screaming for release. Remember your place, little wolf, Logan said, his voice cold and commanding. You belong to me, and I decide when you are allowed pleasure. You are mine, and I will use you as I please. His words were like a slap, a cruel reminder of my position in this twisted game. You are nothing but a breeder, after all, he said with disdain, his words cutting me to the core. Now get yourself together, and be a good girl. As he spoke, he turned his gaze away from me, the contempt in his tone as clear as the moonlight. Why did he just make me feel wanted and needed just to push me down? Freya's POV. As the car sped down the winding road, my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Logan's callous disregard for my feelings stung, but the intense physical attraction that drew me to him was undeniable. The night air was cool as we arrived at the party, the lights of the grand estate casting a warm, golden glow over the sprawling grounds. As we stepped from the car, Logan's hand rested at the small of my back, a possessive gesture that sent a shiver down my spine. The silence in the car had been oppressive, the tension building with each passing mile. My heart beat like the wings of a trapped bird, my pulse racing with the weight of Logan's proximity. As we stepped away from the car and into the crisp night air, I drew in a deep breath, relishing the relief from the oppressive atmosphere. Logan's hand lingered on my back, a possessive gesture that made me feel both wanted and trapped. The building in front of us was a grand estate, the lights and music from the party spilling out into the night. As I surveyed the grand estate, it was clear that this was no ordinary party. The scent of wolves, both alpha and otherwise, mingled with the floral arrangements that adorned the front steps. The muted buzz of conversation and music filtering through the air confirmed my suspicions. This was a gathering of the most powerful and influential alphas in the world. Logan steered me towards the entrance, his presence a beacon that drew the attention of all who saw us. As we entered the party, the air was thick with intrigue and political maneuvering, the whispers and glances of the other wolves leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable. Logan led the way, his hand resting protectively on my back as we walked into the party. "Freya, you look stunning," he whispered in my ear. I shivered at the sound of his voice, his touch sending a wave of warmth through my body. As we entered the main hall, I caught a glimpse of the other wolves. Their eyes were fixed on Logan, their expressions a mix of respect, envy, and curiosity. "What is this place?" I whispered, my voice barely audible above the noise. Logan tightened his grip on my back, his eyes sweeping the room with an air of authority. "This is a gathering of the alphas," he said, his tone low and confident. "They meet to discuss matters of importance to our kind and to network with each other." He leaned closer, his lips brushing against my ear. "But tonight, you are the most important one here. I want to show you off to make them all see that you are mine." My heart pounded as I mustered the courage to speak. "I am not yours," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. Logan's gaze hardened, his eyes flashing with a hint of danger. "Not yet, perhaps," he said, his voice low and dangerous. But soon you will be, and tonight you will play the part." I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry as I realized that Logan was not a man who took kindly to being challenged. I knew I needed to tread carefully if I wanted to survive this night. Logan led me to a corner of the room where a seat had been set up just for him. The chair was imposing, its ornate design clearly marking Logan's position of power in the room. With a possessive glance, he motioned for me to sit, and I took my seat next to him. I could feel the eyes of the other wolves on me, their curiosity and suspicion palpable in the air. As Logan stood up from his seat, the air of authority that surrounded him seemed to multiply tenfold. He exchanged a nod with a few other alphas, and together they left the room, leaving me alone in the corner. I sat there, feeling small and exposed. The conversations around me were hushed and discreet, my own ignorance of pack politics making me feel like an outsider. I couldn't help but wonder what Logan was discussing with the other alphas and what it might mean for me. Time seemed to slow down, every minute feeling like an hour as I waited for Logan's return. Alone and feeling restless, I glanced around the room, trying to distract myself from thoughts of Logan. Suddenly, a man approached, his expression friendly and welcoming. "Hello, Freya," he said, extending a hand in greeting. "I'm Nathan, from the Blackstone Pack." I took his hand, appreciating the friendly gesture. "It's nice to meet you, Nathan," I said with a small smile. Nathan took the seat next to me, his posture relaxed and friendly. He seemed to have a natural ease about him, which I found refreshing in a room filled with tension and politics. "So, you must be Logan's new acquisition, I hear?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his tone. I flushed at the word, not wanting to be seen as a mere possession. "Logan likes to think of it that way," I said, meeting Nathan's gaze with a small smirk. He chuckled. "Ah, Logan, always so confident, isn't he?" Nathan was a handsome man, his features chiseled and sharp, with a playful glint in his eyes. His sandy blonde hair was neatly styled, his well-groomed beard giving him a rugged, masculine appeal. As he offered me a drink from a passing tray, I couldn't help but notice the faint scent of pine and earth that clung to him, a hint of the wild outdoors that seemed to radiate from his very being. "Care for a drink?" he asked, his voice smooth and inviting. "It might make this party a bit more tolerable." I nodded gratefully, reaching for a glass of wine from the tray. "Thank you, Nathan," I said, taking a small sip. As we fell into conversation, I found myself relaxing in his presence. Nathan was charming and witty, his sense of humor a welcome distraction from the intense atmosphere of the party. As the minutes passed, I began to lose track of time. Logan was still absent from the room, but I found that I didn't mind his absence as much as I thought I would. With Nathan by my side, I felt almost free. Freya's POV. Nathan leaned in close, his voice low and conspiratorial. "Come with me," he whispered, his eyes dancing with mischief. "There's a secret garden out back. It's much more interesting than this stuffy room." I hesitated, my mind turning to Logan and the potential consequences of disobeying him. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Logan wasn't there and I couldn't live in constant fear of his temper. With a small smile, I nodded. We slipped away from the party hall, Nathan leading the way through a maze of corridors. The air grew cooler as we descended a set of stairs, the sound of our footsteps echoing in the silence. Finally, we reached a door, hidden behind a curtain of vines. Nathan pushed it open, and I stepped outside, my breath catching at the sight before me. The garden was illuminated by moonlight, a sea of pale flowers swaying in the breeze. A path led down to a small pond, its surface as still and reflective as a mirror. "It's beautiful," I whispered, my voice hushed with wonder. "Isn't it?" Nathan replied, his eyes sparkling in the moonlight. "It's like our own little secret world, away from all the politics and drama." "How did you know about this place?" I asked, curious about his knowledge of the garden. He grinned, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "I have my ways," he said. "Besides, this isn't the first time I've snuck away from a party like this." Nathan took a long draw from his cigar, the smoke swirling around us in a hazy cloud. "You sure you want to try this?" he asked, a smile playing on his lips. "Why not?" I replied, taking the cigar from his outstretched hand. I brought it to my lips, my breath catching at the scent of tobacco and smoke. Nathan leaned in close, his voice low and teasing. "Go on, show me what you've got, Freya." I took a tentative puff, the smoke curling around my tongue in a strange, pungent dance. I coughed, my eyes watering as I choked on the smoke. Nathan laughed, a rich, hearty sound that filled the night air. "Not bad for a first-timer," he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. "You're a natural." I shot him a playful glare, still recovering from my coughing fit. "You could have warned me," I teased, playfully swiping at him with my free hand. Nathan caught my hand in his, a playful smile on his face. "Where's the fun in that?" he replied, his eyes locked on mine. Just as the moment was starting to feel electric, a familiar voice called out my name. "Freya!" Logan's voice boomed, his tone thick with anger. I turned just in time to see Logan raising a gun, his face a mask of fury. Before I could even scream, he pulled the trigger, and the sound of gunfire rang out in the garden. Nathan collapsed to the ground, a pool of blood spreading beneath him. I froze, my body paralyzed with shock as the horror of what had just happened sank in. I stared down at Nathan's lifeless body, the shock of what had just happened numbing my senses. Logan stood over us, his expression stony and determined. "You think you can disobey me?" he growled, his voice dripping with venom. "You think you can just run off with any wolf who catches your eye?" My heart pounded in my chest, a wave of fear washing over me as I realized the depths of Logan's anger. "Please, Logan," I pleaded, my voice trembling. "It wasn't like that. I didn't do anything." "Come here." I turned away from Logan, revulsion surging through me at the sight of Nathan's blood on my body. I walked away, my footsteps pounding on the grass as I stumbled into the depths of the garden. "Freya!" Logan's voice echoed behind me, his anger and desperation clear in his tone. "Come back here now." I kept walking, refusing to acknowledge his calls. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there. I couldn't face the consequences of his rage. The darkness of the garden engulfed me, the shadows cast by the trees providing some small measure of concealment. But as I ventured deeper into the forest, I realized with a sinking dread that I was truly lost. The path I'd been following had disappeared, and the sound of Logan's voice had faded into the distance. I stumbled through the underbrush, my mind racing with the fear of being alone in the forest, hunted by a wolf who seemed determined to punish me for my perceived transgressions. Just as I was about to give up hope, I heard Logan's voice echoing through the trees, his words filled with menace. "Run, Freya. Run as far and as fast as you can, because when I find you, I will make you pay for your disobedience." The sound of his voice sent a chill down my spine, and I began to run, my heart pounding in my chest as I dodged tree trunks and low-hanging branches. I was lost and terrified, but I knew I had to keep running. The forest seemed to stretch on endlessly, the darkness pressing in on me from all sides. My feet pounded on the forest floor, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I pushed myself to keep going. Suddenly, a pair of eyes appeared in the darkness ahead of me, the faint glimmer of moonlight reflecting in their depths. I skidded to a halt, my heart leaping into my throat as I realized I was not alone. A low growl emanated from the shadows, and I realized with a sinking dread that I had stumbled into the territory of another wolf. The growling wolf froze, its ears pricking up as it seemed to sense something behind me. Then, with a suddenness that caught me off guard, it turned tail and fled, vanishing into the underbrush with a few swift strides. I glanced over my shoulder, wondering what had frightened the wolf away. And that's when I saw him. A massive, shadowy figure looming behind me, the moonlight glinting off of his golden eyes. It was Logan, and his rage was palpable, radiating from him like a wildfire. Freya's POV. I froze, my fear and adrenaline colliding in a dangerous mix. "Logan," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the pounding of my heart. "Please, I didn't mean to." "You have disobeyed me," Logan continued, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "And now, you will pay." His words hung in the air like a warning, and I knew that I was in grave danger. There was no reasoning with Logan, no appealing to his sense of mercy. He was a wolf on the hunt, and I was his prey. I backed away, my feet stumbling over the uneven ground as I tried to put some distance between us. But Logan was relentless, his eyes fixed on mine like a predator about to strike. The voice that rang out was both familiar and unexpected, a whisper of guidance in the darkness. "Run, Freya. Run as fast as you can," it said, and I obeyed without question. I turned and fled, my legs pumping as I sprinted through the underbrush. But even as my body responded to the fear and adrenaline coursing through it, I could feel the presence of my wolf, Alexa, stirring within me. She was alive and hungry, eager to be unleashed and to join in the chase. The sound of Logan's pursuit fueled my flight, his footsteps closing in behind me with each passing moment. My heart raced, my lungs burning as I pushed myself harder and faster, dodging trees and leaping over fallen logs in my desperation to escape. And then, as if in answer to my silent plea for help, I heard Alexa's voice, the wolf within me rousing to life. "Let me out, Freya," she said, her voice fierce and primal. "Let me protect you." Despite the instinctual pull to release Alexa and allow her to fight for my survival, I knew that to do so would be to reveal the full extent of the mate bond between Logan and myself. If he discovered the truth, he would never let me go, his anger and possessiveness only amplified by the knowledge of our fated connection. So I held Alexa back, her presence a fire within me that I struggled to contain. I could feel her frustration, her desire to protect me, but I knew that for now, at least, my survival depended on remaining hidden. As my energy began to wane, my muscles burning with exhaustion, I knew I could not outrun Logan forever. I slowed, turning to face him as he shifted back into his human form. His chest heaved with exertion, but his eyes were still fixed on me with the same predatory intensity as before. "Where do you think you're going?" he demanded, his voice low and menacing. I stood my ground, my own anger and defiance rising to meet his. "I'm tired of running, Logan," I replied, my voice steady despite the fear that coursed through me. Logan stalked towards me, his movements slow and deliberate. "You don't get to decide when this is over," he snarled, his fingers curling into fists at his sides. But I refused to be cowed. "I'm not your prisoner, Logan," I shot back, my own voice rising to match his. "You don't own me." "You belong to me," Logan repeated, his voice laced with authority and arrogance. "You will submit to my will, or there will be consequences." But I stood firm, my defiance fueled by the knowledge that I was not some weak, helpless creature to be toyed with. "I will not submit to anyone," I growled, my eyes flashing with anger. "Not even you, Alpha." Logan's expression darkened, his lip curling in a snarl. "You think you can defy me, Piccola?" he spat, his words dripping with venom. Logan's temper flared, his hand reaching out to grab me by the arm. But I was ready for him, my reflexes quick as I dodged his grasp and darted out of reach. Logan let out a guttural roar, his fury turning the air around us thick and oppressive. Without warning, he lunged at me, his powerful arms closing around my body as he wrestled me to the ground. I struggled against him, my nails digging into his flesh as I fought to break free. No matter how hard I fought, it was no use. Logan was a seasoned warrior, his strength and speed far exceeding my own. With a final brutal shove, he forced me to the ground, his body pressing down on mine as he wrapped his powerful fingers around my neck. "Stop fighting," he commanded, his voice harsh and uncompromising. "Submit to me, Freya, or I will make you regret it." I struggled for breath, my vision beginning to blur as Logan's grip tightened. As Logan watched the tears spill from my eyes, something in him seemed to soften. He loosened his grip on my neck, his expression shifting from anger to something that almost resembled concern. "Freya," he said, his voice gentler now, "I don't want to hurt you, but you need to understand your place in this pack, in this world." Logan's words cut deep, each one striking like a dagger to my heart. "You are a nobody, Freya," he said, his voice cold and calculating. "Killing you would be of no consequence to me or the pack." The tears streamed down my face, the pain and betrayal of his words overwhelming me. "I hate you," I whispered, my voice trembling with rage and hurt. "I hate you for what you've done to me, for what you've taken from me." Logan's expression hardened, his eyes glittering with a cruel amusement. Logan's words were like a slap in the face, his twisted pleasure in my pain only adding to my torment. "You are so pretty when you cry. I hope you are enjoying this." "Oh, I'm enjoying this very much," he replied, his voice low and menacing. "I always enjoy breaking in a new wolf, especially one as stubborn and willful as you." "You disgust me," I spat, my voice laced with venom. "You're nothing but a bully and a tyrant. You're no Alpha, Logan. You're just a cruel, pathetic excuse for a wolf." Freya's POV. Tears streamed down my face, the pain and betrayal of his words overwhelming me. I hate you, I whispered, my voice trembling with rage and hurt. I hate you for what you've done to me, for what you've taken from me. Logan's expression hardened, his eyes glittering with a cruel amusement. Logan's words were like a slap in the face, his twisted pleasure in my pain, only adding to my torment. You are so pretty when you cry. I hope you are enjoying this. Oh, I'm enjoying this very much, he replied, his voice low and menacing. I always enjoy breaking in a new wolf, especially one as stubborn and willful as you. You disgust me, I spat, my voice laced with venom. You're nothing but a bully and a tyrant. You're no Alpha, Logan. You're just a cruel, pathetic excuse for a wolf. Logan's eyes flashed with a predatory gleam as he leaned in close, his voice a whisper in my ear. You think you're strong, Freya? He hissed, his breath hot against my skin. But you're weak, just like the rest of them. And if I ever catch you with another man again, I will make you kill him yourself. Do you understand? My heart raced, the implications of his threat sinking in with chilling clarity. I was trapped, my freedom and autonomy stripped away by this cruel, twisted man. Now, Logan continued, his grip on my throat tightening once more. You will come with me, and you will do as I say. Or so help me, Freya. I will make your life a living hell. He hauled me to my feet, his grip on my arm like iron. I could feel the bruises forming already, the ache of my bones protesting against his strength. But I had no choice. Logan was the alpha, and I was nothing but a lowly wolf in his pack. And I would do as he commanded, if only to survive. 3 days had passed since my encounter with Logan in the garden, and I had been locked in my room ever since, my freedom and independence snatched away like a fragile thread. Xavier had driven me home in silence, the weight of Logan's anger hanging heavy in the air between us, and when we arrived at the pack house, Logan had been waiting, his fury burning like a furnace as he ordered me to my room. I hadn't seen Elena since, her visits a thing of the past as Logan continued to punish me for my perceived disobedience. I sat alone in my room, my thoughts swirling in an endless loop of despair and regret. The familiar wooden walls seemed to close in around me, suffocating me with their silence and solitude. As a tray of food was slid beneath the door, my appetite vanished, the taste of metal and regret filling my mouth. Alexa's voice echoed in my mind, a constant companion in my solitude. How could you be so reckless, Freya? She scolded, her words sharp with disappointment. You knew what Logan was like, and yet you defied him. You put us both in danger. I know, I replied, my voice weary and defeated. I should have listened to you, but I couldn't stand the thought of living like this under his thumb. I needed to be free. I'm tired of being pushed around, I confessed, my voice cracking with emotion. I'm tired of being treated like a pawn in Logan's game. But what choice do I have? I'm bound to him now, tied to him by the mate bond, and once I give him a child, I'll be trapped forever. Alexa was silent for a moment, her presence a comforting warmth in the darkness of my thoughts. There's always a choice, Freya, she said finally, her voice soft and determined. As I drifted off to sleep, the darkness enveloping me like a shroud, I allowed myself a moment of peace, a respite from the turmoil that had become my life. But the respite was short-lived as I awoke suddenly in the darkness, my heart racing with fear and confusion. A figure was lying beside me, its breath warm against my skin. I stiffened, my body tense with adrenaline as I reached out to touch the stranger, my fingers hesitating against the softness of his hair. It's me, Freya, Logan replied, his voice low and husky. You don't have to be afraid. I struggled against him, the fear and rage surging through me like a wild animal. Let me go, I demanded, my voice shaking. Don't start Piccola. The soft, intimate nickname sent a shockwave through my body, the familiarity of it stirring something primal within me. Don't call me that, I whispered, my protest half-hearted as his hands roamed over my body, sending a blaze of heat through my veins. The intensity of our shared connection, the mate bond, seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment, its power binding us together in a way that was both frightening and exhilarating. Logan's lips brushed against my neck, his breath sending shivers through my body as he murmured in my ear, You are mine, Freya, my little wolf. His words were like a spell, their power unfurling within me as my resistance began to crumble. I could feel my body responding to his touch, the fire within me building with each caress, each stroke of his fingers. I'm not yours, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Despite the intensity of my desire, I knew that I couldn't surrender so easily to Logan. Not after everything he'd put me through. I struggled against him, my body writhing beneath his as I feigned resistance. I won't give in to you, I panted, my voice ragged with desire. You can't force me to love you, to be with you. Logan's chuckle was low and dangerous, his lips curving into a devilish smile. Oh, Freya, he murmured, his fingers dancing across my skin. You think this is about love? Logan's voice was dark and taunting, his fingers tracing patterns on my skin that sent shivers down my spine. You're nothing but a breeder, a vessel to carry my pups, a warm body to satisfy my needs. I gasped at his words, my anger and defiance surging to the surface once more. You have nothing to offer apart from your pussy. You're a monster, I spat, my voice trembling with rage. Logan's grin widened, the intensity in his gaze burning like coals. The force of his grip, the dominance in his touch, sent a surge of electricity through my body. I struggled against him, my lips parting in protest as his mouth closed over mine, but then, as if by some magic spell, my body betrayed me. My resistance crumbled, and I melted into his embrace, my lips opening to his kiss as my body arched against his, the yearning for his touch. Logan laughed, low and triumphant, his hands roaming over my body with renewed intensity. Freya's POV. Logan's hands found their way beneath my clothes, his fingers teasing and caressing as my body shuddered with need. He kissed his way down my neck, nipping at the tender skin with his teeth as I gasped with pleasure. Say it, he whispered against my skin. Say you're mine. I fought against the words, against the surrender they represented, but my body was begging for more. I'm yours, I murmured, my voice barely a whisper as I yielded to his power, to his desire. As the words left my lips, Logan's touch grew bolder, his mouth and hands exploring every inch of my body as my desire reached a fever pitch. He tore at my clothes, the fabric falling away in tatters as he revealed my nakedness to his gaze. His touch was possessive, almost brutal, but I found myself responding to him with a ferocity that surprised even myself. More, I pleaded, my voice raw with need. Please, Logan, give me more. As the words left my lips, I caught myself, my inner voice rebelling against the submissiveness of my plea. That wasn't me, I thought, my conscious mind struggling to regain control. That was Alexa, my wolf. She was the one demanding more, begging for Logan's touch. I tried to fight it, to resist the primal urge within me, but it was no use. Logan's presence, his dominance, was overwhelming, his touch awakening something primal and wild within me that I couldn't deny. Logan's fingers worked quickly, stripping me of my remaining clothes as I trembled with anticipation. My skin burned against his touch, the heat of his body searing into mine as he feasted on my flesh with his mouth, his teeth. I arched against him, my nails raking across his back as he positioned himself above me, his eyes locked with mine. Look at me, he growled, the intensity in his gaze piercing straight through to my soul. I want you to see who owns you, Freya. Logan's lips found mine once more, his kiss a blend of hunger and possessiveness as he claimed me with his mouth. My body writhed beneath him, my breath quickening as he slid his hand between my legs, his fingers coaxing me towards the edge of pleasure. Say it again, he demanded, his voice low and hoarse with need. Tell me who owns you. I felt myself surrendering completely to his touch, to his desire. You own me, I moaned, my voice husky with lust. I'm yours, Logan. Logan's fingers slid deeper, teasing and exploring the wetness between my legs as I gasped with pleasure. I writhed against him, my hips lifting to meet his touch as he whispered dirty words in my ear, his voice filled with power and command. Tell me how good it feels, Freya, he growled, his fingers working their magic as I moaned and whimpered. Tell me how much you need me, how much you want me inside you. I struggled to form the words, my mind a haze of pleasure and desire, as I lost myself in the moment. Logan's fingers continued their assault, his thumb teasing my clit as my body began to tremble with anticipation. Say it, he commanded, his voice hoarse and urgent. Tell me what you need from me, Freya. I moaned, my body quivering with need as I fought to hold on to my last shred of control. I need you, Logan, I pleaded, my words breathless and raw. I need you inside me. Please, please take me. Logan's fingers worked faster, their rhythm building as my body responded, the tension within me coiling tighter and tighter. My breath came in short, desperate gasps as the pleasure built to a fever pitch, my body trembling on the brink of release. And then, with a sharp cry of ecstasy, I tipped over the edge, my body convulsing with pleasure as I surrendered completely to the climax. Logan watched me with a feral grin, his eyes blazing with satisfaction as he feasted on the sight of my pleasure. Logan brought his fingers to his lips, his tongue sliding along the wetness that coated them as he savored the taste of me on his skin. His eyes locked with mine, a look of pure animalistic hunger in his gaze as he licked his fingers clean, his lips parting in a slow, sensual grin. "Delicious," he purred, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "But I'm not done with you yet, Freya." He leaned in closer, his breath hot against my skin as his hand trailed down my body. Logan's fingers slid deep into my core, his touch eliciting a moan of pleasure from me as he withdrew them once more, glistening with my arousal. He pressed his fingers against my lips, his eyes intense and commanding as he whispered in a low, seductive voice. "Taste yourself, Freya. Taste your own pleasure." My heart pounded in my chest as I hesitated for a moment, but then, unable to resist his command, I opened my mouth, allowing him to slip his fingers inside. I tasted myself on Logan's fingers, his gaze boring into mine as I sucked and licked the wetness from his skin. His eyes darkened with desire as he watched me, his hands stroking my hair as he murmured in approval. "Good girl," he growled, his voice deep and authoritative. "Now, it's time to show you what an alpha can do." Logan's lips closed around my nipple, his tongue circling the sensitive bud as I arched against him, a moan of pleasure escaping my lips. Logan's mouth worked its way across my breasts, his teeth grazing my skin as his hands roamed over my body, exploring every curve, every inch of me. He continued to tease and torment me with his tongue and fingers, his touch sending waves of pleasure through my body as he whispered in my ear. "Do you want me, Freya?" he asked, his voice low and husky. "Do you want to feel me inside you, filling you?" I nodded, my breath coming in short gasps as I ached for his touch, for the release that only he could give me. "Freya's pav. I swear I am so fucking confused," I breathed out as Elena's warm hands embraced me. "Shh. Stop crying, it's too early to cry," she said, and I saw the sadness in her eyes. She pitied me, and I hated it. The words that came out of my mouth were raw and real, reflecting the turmoil raging inside me. Elena's comforting touch only amplified the storm of emotions, making it even harder to find clarity. "I don't want to be his breeder anymore," I muttered, as if saying the words out loud could somehow make them real. The bitter truth was that I had no say in the matter. My father had sold me off like livestock, and I was at the mercy of Logan's whims. If only he were ugly, I thought bitterly. At least then I could hate him easily, without this sickening conflict inside me. But his raw masculinity, the undeniable power he exuded, it made resistance almost impossible. In my mind, I kept replaying our heated encounter from the night before, the memory of Logan's touch still burning on my skin. It was a secret I knew I had to keep from Elena and everyone else. If they knew how my body had responded to him, they would think I had betrayed them all. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the realization that I was trapped here, under Logan's control, settled over me like a suffocating weight. Was there any way out of this mess? Could I find a way to save myself and my pack before it was too late? With a gentle squeeze of my shoulder, Elena said, "It's time for breakfast. Let's get you ready." She had been with me through thick and thin, more of a sister than a caretaker at this point. I sighed, resigning myself to the fact that life had to continue, even when it felt like the world was falling apart. "All right," I said, allowing Elena to lead me towards the bathroom to prepare for the day ahead, not knowing what horrors or pleasures awaited me in the days to come. His gaze was like a brand, searing my skin with its intensity. But I refused to meet his stare, knowing that if I did, he would see the chaos within me. So I kept my head down, focusing on my food and the clatter of silverware on porcelain as I tried to ignore his presence at the table. The silence at the breakfast table was deafening. Logan's stare, heavy and oppressive, lingered on me like a curse, but I resisted the urge to break eye contact with my plate. The food before me turned to ash in my mouth, each bite tasting like sawdust as I chewed mechanically, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty. When the meal was over, I stood from the table, my heart thudding in my chest as I fought to maintain my composure. I had to get out of this room, out of his presence, before I cracked under the pressure of his gaze. "Sit," Logan's voice commanded, and my heart skipped a beat as I met his icy blue eyes. I obeyed without hesitation, dropping into the chair across from him as Xavier watched, his eyes following my movements with a curious intensity. "How have you been feeling lately?" Xavier asked, his voice soft and gentle as he leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. I knew what he was getting at, wondering if Logan had already gotten me pregnant. "Sick to my stomach," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion as I looked away, unable to meet their stares. "I see," Xavier said, his voice laced with concern. "We should get you to the doctor. We'll need to know if you're pregnant." I nodded, my hands twisting together in my lap as I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling in my stomach. Logan remained silent, his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Xavier continued, "We'll have to get you there discreetly. Logan's enemies will be watching." Logan's gaze finally shifted, his eyes narrowing as he spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "They won't get to her," Logan growled, his eyes flashing with a possessive fury. "She's mine, and I'll tear apart anyone who tries to harm her." Xavier nodded, his hands still resting on the table as he regarded his Alpha with deference. "Of course, Alpha. I'll make the necessary arrangements." Logan turned his attention back to me, his eyes roaming over my body with an intensity that made my breath catch in my throat. The unease in Xavier's demeanor had me questioning whether there was more to this visit than a routine checkup. Why did he seem so concerned about Logan's enemies getting to me? Was there a mole in the pack, someone feeding information to those who would seek to harm us? I pondered these questions as I sat across from Logan, his possessive gaze pinning me in place like a bug under glass. I didn't dare voice my thoughts, knowing that any sign of weakness or curiosity would be seen as a challenge to his dominance. The moment the last scrap of food was cleared from the breakfast table, Logan spoke, his voice low and commanding. "Freya, I'll be in my office. Wait for me there." As Logan spoke, his words hung in the air like a sword, sharp and precise. I watched him, the Alpha in all his glory, his power radiating like a tangible force. I nodded in response, yet curiosity bloomed within me. Why did he want me to wait in his office? Logan stood, the scrape of his chair across the floor resonating in my ears. With a curt nod to Beta Xavier, he made his way out of the dining room, the weight of his presence lingering long after he was gone. My feet moved forward, the soft thud of my footsteps echoing in the silent hallway. As I approached Logan's office, my mind raced with possibilities. Was he about to impart some crucial information, or was he simply trying to assert his dominance over me once again? Would he continue to use his body to break down my defenses, or was there something more sinister at play? Freya's pav. As my hand touched the door handle, my heart thudded in my chest. Part of me was dreading whatever he had in store, while another part craved the undeniable rush of his touch. The door swung open, revealing the darkened room beyond. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of leather and wood smoke teased my senses, filling me with a strange mixture of apprehension and desire. Like a moth drawn to a flame, my gaze was irresistibly pulled towards a woman perched on Logan's desk. The blonde stranger from the party, the one who had ruined my dress with wine, was now here in his office, a mocking smile playing on her full lips. Well, if it isn't the Alpha's new plaything," the woman purred, her voice a silken trap waiting to ensnare. I felt her hackles rise, the words igniting a white-hot flame of anger within me. The woman continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I must say, I'm surprised Logan's taken such an interest in you. He usually tires of his pets rather quickly. Tell me, what makes you different?" I felt the anger inside her rise like a tidal wave, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I'm his mate," I replied, my voice cool and even. "Not a pet, and I'll thank you to remember that, Lucia." Lucia's smile faltered slightly, her eyes narrowing as she took in my unflinching gaze. "A breeder? Sold like a commodity?" Lucia let out a laugh, the sound grating on my nerves like nails on a chalkboard. "You really believe you're his mate? You're nothing more than a convenient solution to a problem. You're no different than a house cat, to be cuddled when he's feeling generous and discarded when he's not." My jaw tightened, her fingers curling into fists at my sides as I fought to maintain her composure. "You're wrong," I hissed, my eyes boring into Lucia's with an intensity that made her lips curl back in a sneer. "I am his mate, whether you choose to believe it or not. And unlike you, I'm not some disposable toy to be tossed aside when he's bored." The last word barely left my lips before Lucia's face contorted into a mask of pure hatred, her nails digging into the leather of the desk as she rose from her perch. "The rejection will really hurt," Lucia mumbled, her eyes raking over me with an air of superiority. Her words cut deep, reminding me of the painful truth. Logan would never accept me as his mate. I bit my lip, unable to deny the sting of her words as I looked away. Lucia moved closer to me, her words laced with false sympathy. "Enjoy your time, dear. It won't last long." Then, as if the ghost of her presence was enough to herald his arrival, Logan's voice sliced through the tension like a blade. "Leave now," he commanded, his tone cold and unyielding. Lucia shot me one last smirk before slipping past Logan, her hips swaying suggestively as she made her exit. I tried to read Logan's face, but it was as impassive as stone. After Lucia's departure, the silence in the room was thick and suffocating. Logan's presence was a palpable force, his energy crackling through the air. I shifted on my feet, unsure of what to do or say, as he watched me with unreadable eyes. Finally, he spoke. "Do you believe her?" His voice was low, almost dangerous, and my heart skipped a beat. I swallowed hard, struggling to find the right words. "No, I don't want to." But I trailed off, unsure of how to articulate my fears without sounding weak or vulnerable. Before I could utter another word, Logan grabbed me, his strong arms enveloping me in a vice-like grip. My back pressed against his chest, the heat of his body searing through the thin fabric of my dress. "Good," he growled, his breath hot on my neck. "Because she doesn't know what she's talking about. You're mine, and I will never let anyone take you away from me." His possessiveness should have scared me, but instead it ignited a flame deep within me. I couldn't help but let the words slip past my lips, a hint of defiance coloring my tone. "You're handsome when you lie." Logan's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't seem angered by my remark. Instead, he stepped back, his hands still resting on my hips as he studied my face. "And what exactly do you think I'm lying about?" he asked, his voice taking on a serious edge. "Your presence? Your scent? Does it make you sick?" My throat went dry as Logan's question hung in the air, the implications of his words heavy with meaning. I swallowed hard, searching for the courage to voice my fear, my fingers nervously twisting the fabric of my dress. I'm not sure. I've been feeling sick lately, but I didn't want to assume." I trailed off, not wanting to admit that I might be carrying his child. Logan's expression softened, a hint of tenderness seeping through the mask of indifference he wore. "It's all right, Freya. We'll find out soon enough." The words of my wolf, Alexa, echoed in my mind like a haunting whisper. "Mate cares for us." I rolled my eyes, unable to shake the stubborn naivete of my other half. Despite Alexa's unwavering belief, I couldn't help but doubt Logan's intentions. Was he truly concerned for my well-being, or was he merely interested in securing an heir? And, more importantly, was I truly his mate? Did he feel the pull of the bond as strongly as I did? I could feel the urge to speak, to tell Logan that I didn't want to be his mate, that I didn't trust him, rising up in me like a tidal wave. But as quickly as it came, it was quelled by a strange sensation that bloomed in my chest, a flutter of warmth that felt like love. I bit my lip, my eyes darting away as I struggled with this unfamiliar feeling. How could I even consider loving someone like Logan, who had forced me to become his breeder, who had taken away my freedom? A voice in my head urged me to confess, to admit the truth of our bond, even if it meant being rejected. I couldn't explain the pull I felt towards Logan, this inexplicable need to belong to him, to give him all of myself. Logan's pav. The water was cool against my skin, but it did little to soothe the fire raging in my veins. Freya. Just thinking her name made my pulse quicken, a dizzying cocktail of rage and desire coursing through me. I knew she was behind this feeling of being so out of control, of wanting her in ways that made no sense. It had to be her. The bond between us was unlike anything I had ever experienced before, and I had fought against it with every ounce of willpower I possessed. But the truth was undeniable. As I surfaced from the pool, the air felt chilly against my damp skin, a stark contrast to the heat that still simmered within me. I grabbed a towel, my movements sharp and precise as I patted myself dry. She was a complication I didn't need, a distraction from my responsibilities as Alpha. But she was also a weakness I couldn't seem to shake. Her scent haunted me, her curves called to me, her defiance taunted me. And worst of all, her presence made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time, vulnerable. As I made my way back to my chambers, the familiar confines of my own space provided little comfort. I could still smell her lingering in the air, a sweet and intoxicating reminder of our recent encounter. Sitting down at my desk, I ran a hand through my damp hair, frustration mounting. I needed to regain control, to put some distance between us before it was too late. But how? Every time I told myself to stay away from her, to focus on more important matters, the pull of the bond grew stronger, more insistent. The growl of my wolf echoed through my mind, his demand reverberating through my bones. I want her. We want her, he said, his primal instincts impossible to ignore. I clenched my jaw, my hands gripping the edge of the desk until my knuckles turned white. Control yourself, I commanded, struggling to maintain my composure. We cannot let her distract us from our duty. She is a weakness, and we must remain strong. My wolf's voice rose again, louder this time. She is our mate. Denying her is denying ourselves. The bond is too strong. I don't care, I roared, the anger coursing through me like a raging river. My wolf pushed back, his dissatisfaction making me feel even more on edge. I've waited all this time for my mate, and this is what I'm given? I seethed, frustration making me feel helpless and volatile. Why her? Why the poor, abused girl who was sold to me as a breeder? I paced around the room, my mind a swirling tempest of conflicting emotions. I can't even bring myself to hurt her. And why is that? My wolf's voice was a low, dangerous growl, the implications of his question sending a jolt of realization through me. Was it pity? Was that what stayed my hand when I should have been harder on her? Or was it something else, something I couldn't bring myself to admit? Maybe if she wasn't my mate, it would be easier to reject her, I said, the words tasting sour on my tongue. If I didn't feel this pull towards her, this desire, it would be simple. The word desire hung in the air like a specter, taunting me with its truth. Was that what this was? Was I so weakened by my own baser instincts that I couldn't resist the call of my mate? I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of emotion that clouded my judgment. No, I said firmly. I am the Alpha. I am in control. I will not let this attraction sway me from my duty. But as I spoke the words, I knew they were hollow. My wolf's growl rumbled through me, low and insistent. Mate now. Go find mate, he commanded, his urgency palpable. I fought against his influence, but the pool of emotion within me was churning, threatening to spill over. I found myself approaching my door, my body moving as though possessed. The desire to find Freya, to claim her, to make her mine in every way possible was overpowering. No, I growled, digging my claws into my palms as I struggled for control. Not yet. Sweat broke out on my brow as I fought a losing battle against my instincts. I could feel my wolf's rage building, his snarls and grunts echoing through my mind like a siren's call. Enough, he snarled, his voice shaking the very foundations of my being. Obey me, Alpha. She is our mate. Claim her, or I will claim her for you. The thought of another taking what was mine sent a surge of fury through me, an inferno of possessiveness that engulfed my every sense. The raging inferno within me was stoked by the possessive instincts of my wolf, the desire to claim Freya as mine becoming a burning obsession. The thought of another, even a part of myself, taking her was unbearable, a clawing rage that threatened to consume me. I remembered the moment I first felt the mate bond, the way it had wrapped around me like a vice, pulling me towards Freya with a primal force I couldn't deny. But I had fought against it, battled every day to hide it, and stopped myself from giving in to the primal instinct to worship this woman. My heart was pounding in my chest, a drumbeat of inevitability that signaled the approach of something monumental. I could feel the walls I had erected around my emotions crumbling, the carefully crafted armor I had worn for so long slipping away like sand through my fingers. No, I said, my voice hoarse with desire. I will not succumb to this. But as I spoke the words, my feet were already carrying me towards the door, my hand reaching out to turn the handle. The desire to find Freya, to make her mine, was irresistible. The memory of that day was a sharp, searing reminder of the strength of our bond. I could still feel the pull, the magnetic force that had drawn me towards Freya like a moth to a flame. "She feels it too," my wolf whispered, his voice low and persuasive. "I know she does. She is just good at hiding it as you are." The thought sent a shiver of anticipation through me, a primal part of me reveling in the idea of Freya being equally consumed by our connection. Her scent hit me first, an intoxicating blend of wildflowers and musk that wrapped around me like a sensual embrace. I saw her, just steps away from her door, her back to me. In that moment, something snapped within me, a primal instinct unleashing itself upon me like a tidal wave. Before I knew what I was doing, I had crossed the distance between us, my hand reaching out to grab a fistful of her hair, yanking her back against me. "Fuck Freya," I growled, the sound a low, feral snarl. "What have you done to me?" Logan's POV. I pressed her harder against the wall, my body flush against hers as I let the full force of my desire take hold. She gasped, her breathing shallow and rapid as she struggled against my grip, but I didn't release her. "What have you done to me, Freya?" I demanded, my voice rough with emotion. "I can't think straight when you're around. I want you. I need you. I can't fight it anymore." My words were a confession, an admission of weakness that I had never before voiced to anyone. As I held her against me, I could feel the heat of her body searing into mine, her pulse thundering beneath my touch. My fingers tightened around her hair, my grip possessive and unyielding. "You're mine, Freya," I growled, the words a primal claim that reverberated through my bones. Mine to claim, mine to possess, mine to protect. I could feel the mating bond between us straining against its constraints, the primal pull of our connection demanding to be sated. Freya's eyes burned with a mixture of anger and hunger, her defiance palpable as she spoke through gritted teeth. "I am not yours, Logan. You can't just claim me like some kind of possession. I belong to myself and no one else." Her words were a challenge, a gauntlet thrown at my feet, but instead of enraging me, they only fanned the flames of my desire. "Oh, you're mine, Freya," I whispered against her ear, my breath hot against her skin. "You might not know it yet, but you are. Your body, your mind, your very soul belongs to me." I tightened my grip on her hair, my mouth trailing down her neck, tasting the salty sweetness of her skin. Freya opened her mouth to protest, but before a sound could escape her lips, I crushed my mouth against hers, hungry and desperate for the taste of her. My tongue swept into her mouth, a wild claim of ownership, a promise of the pleasure that awaited her if only she would submit. Her lips were soft and pliant beneath mine, the heat of her body burning through her clothes as I devoured her, my hands roaming freely over her curves, possessive and demanding. The hunger in me grew stronger with every taste of Freya, her mouth an oasis of forbidden desires that I couldn't resist. I held her against the wall, our bodies a tangle of limbs and heat, as my hands roamed over the curve of her hip, the swell of her breasts, each touch leaving a brand of possession on her skin. She moaned into my mouth, her body responding to my touch, aching for more even as her words told me to stop. But I wouldn't be deterred. Not now. Not ever. "You're driving me insane, Piccola," I growled against her lips, the Italian endearment slipping out without thought, fueled by the primal fire that burned within me. "It's not fair for you to tease me like this." Freya gasped as I carried her legs up, her body now pressed firmly against mine. The wet heat of her core against my throbbing erection sent a jolt of lust through me, a hunger that could only be sated by claiming her. With a growl, I lowered my mouth to her neck, the scent of her arousal mingling with the musk of my own desire, forming a heady mix that intoxicated me. My tongue traced a hot path down her collarbone, her breath quickening as I suckled the delicate skin there. My hand traveled down her body, slipping beneath the waistband of her pants, seeking the heat and wetness of her core. She moaned, her hips arching into my touch, the desire in her body clear despite her protests. "Alpha, we're in the hallway," she protested, her words a breathless whisper as she tried to resist the pleasure I was giving her. But I ignored her, lost in the haze of lust that clouded my mind. My fingers slid inside her, curling as I found that sensitive spot that made her gasp. The sudden release of Freya's body made her stumble, her legs still wobbly from the intense pleasure that had coursed through her. She watched me as I eyed her hungrily, her chest rising and falling rapidly with each breath she took. For a moment, I stood there, our gazes locked, a silent challenge that reverberated between us. And then, without another word, I turned and left, my feet carrying me away from her, but my heart and soul already bound to her. The hurt in Freya's eyes as I walked away haunted me long after I left, a reminder of the pain that I had caused. But I knew that if I stayed any longer, I would have claimed her, body and soul, and there would be no turning back. The bond between us was undeniable, a potent force that threatened to consume me. But I couldn't give in, not yet. There was still too much at stake, too many unanswered questions that hung in the balance. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice stern and authoritative as Lucia stood before me, eyes wide with a mixture of desire and uncertainty. I knew she could feel the hunger in my words, the primal need that coursed through my veins like wildfire. But I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't driven by the mate bond alone, that I was still in control. Lucia, sensing the tension in the air, bit her lip and replied, "I was just hoping to see you. Is that wrong?" I could see the effect I was having on her, the hunger in my gaze making her shiver slightly as she stood before me, like a lamb before the lion. But Lucia wasn't my mate. She wasn't Freya. And yet the need to claim her, to mark her as mine, was growing stronger by the minute. "Come inside," I said, my voice low and commanding as I gestured towards my office. Once Lucia stepped into my office, the predatory instincts I had been suppressing for so long burst forth, fueled by the overwhelming need to prove my control. My hand shot out, grabbing her neck firmly, but not too harshly, as I pinned her against the door. "What do you want from me, Lucia?" I growled, my voice low and dangerous. "Tell me." "I want to be your Luna," Lucia repeated, her voice trembling as she spoke, the fear and desire warring within her. I felt her body tense as she tried to resist, her breath coming in shallow gasps as I held her firmly against the door. And yet, all I could think about was Freya. Would marking Lucia ease the burning need within me? Would it quell the desire that only my true mate could truly satisfy? Freya's POV. I had never felt so insulted in my entire life. The audacity of that man. He had the nerve to assert his dominance over me, to command me to prove myself worthy of a position that I never wanted in the first place. The nerve. As I paced back and forth in my room, my thoughts were a jumble of rage and confusion. I couldn't believe I had actually started to feel something for that arrogant Alpha, only to have him reject me and then try to claim me as his Luna. The nerve. I was fuming, pacing back and forth like a caged tiger, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. The mate bond. That had to be it. There was no other explanation for why Logan would act so possessively, why he would try to claim me as his Luna despite his attempts to distance himself. But what did it mean for me? Was I destined to be the mate of an Alpha who hated me? A man who treated me like a possession, a trophy to be won? I could feel the rage and frustration coursing through my body, every fiber of my being rebelling against the thought of being controlled by anyone, let alone Logan. With a grunt, I collapsed onto my bed, my legs shaking from the effort of standing. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, a wave of dizziness washed over me, making me nauseous. "Ugh," I groaned, pressing a hand to my forehead. Was this some kind of side effect of the mate bond? Or was it something else entirely? Elena's concerned face appeared in the doorway just as the dizziness hit me like a tsunami. Without a word, I bolted for the bathroom, barely making it to the toilet before I vomited. "Freya." Elena's voice was filled with concern as she rushed to my side, holding my hair back as I retched into the toilet bowl. "Are you okay? What's wrong?" I managed to shake my head, unable to speak as the nausea continued to wash over me in waves. Was this some kind of sickness, or was it something else entirely? "I feel sick." "Sick?" Elena's voice was filled with worry as she handed me a glass of water and a towel to wipe my face. "What kind of sick? Is it a virus, or something else?" I took a sip of water, my hand shaking slightly as I ran the towel over my face. "I'm not sure," I admitted, finally finding my voice. "I feel dizzy and nauseous, but it's not like any sickness I've had before." Elena's expression darkened, her brow furrowing as she considered my symptoms. "Freya, I think you might be pregnant," Elena said, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "It could explain the nausea and dizziness, and the mate bond might be making you extra sensitive." I stared at her in disbelief, my mind reeling at the thought of being pregnant. At least all the sex wouldn't be a waste. And yet, as I thought back to our encounter in the hallway, my cheeks flushed with heat. Had we gone further than I had realized? Elena's eyes were filled with concern as she spoke softly. "We need to go to the pack doctor, Freya. You need to know for sure if you're pregnant or not, and if you are." She trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air between us. Elena's words hit me like a punch to the gut. "It's good news, Freya. You're doing a great job as a breeder," she said, her face alight with joy. I couldn't help but roll my eyes, her words grating against my already frayed nerves. But as I sat there, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Pregnant. It was a word that seemed so foreign, so otherworldly, and yet it was happening to me. A wave of fear washed over me as I considered the implications of this pregnancy. I was escorted by Elena to the pack hospital, my stomach churning with a mixture of anxiety and nausea. The corridors of the hospital seemed to stretch on forever, the steady beeping of the machines and the hushed voices of the staff adding to my unease. Finally, we arrived at a small, sterile room, the sharp smell of antiseptic and the uncomfortable cold of the metal examination table assaulting my senses. "We'll need a blood sample to confirm the pregnancy," the doctor said in a flat, clinical tone that did little to assuage my fears. I stared at the needle the doctor held with a mixture of fear and resignation. My throat felt dry, my heart racing as I extended my arm, offering it up to him like a sacrificial lamb. The sharp prick of the needle was a relief, the physical pain eclipsing the emotional turmoil that was raging within me. As the doctor took the sample, my mind raced, 1,000 scenarios playing out in my head. What if I was pregnant? How would Logan react? How would this change my life? I tried to convince myself that Logan would be happy. After all, I was carrying out the duty that I had been sold for, and he could get rid of me as soon as the pup was born. He would have his heir, and I would have my freedom. But something within me resisted this thought. I knew Logan wasn't a heartless monster, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than he let on. My heart thundered in my chest as the doctor returned, his face unreadable as he held the pregnancy test in his hands. "Freya, the test is positive. You're pregnant," he said, his words falling like a hammer on my already fragile state. For a moment, the room seemed to spin, the air thickening as my mind struggled to process this new reality. Pregnant. I was pregnant with Logan's child, Freya's Pav. The doctor gave me a sympathetic look, his hand resting on my shoulder. Shock. It was the only emotion I could identify in that moment. Despite knowing that this day would eventually come, the suddenness of it all left me reeling. I sat there, numb and immobile, my mind racing with possibilities, my heart beating a frantic rhythm in my chest. Elena's gentle hand on my back was a comfort, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. But it didn't lessen the feeling of isolation that was creeping up my spine. The realization that I was now bound to Logan and the pack in ways I never could have imagined. I fought to keep my tears at bay as I faced the doctor, my voice wavering as I spoke. "How many weeks am I pregnant?" I asked, already knowing the answer. The doctor flipped through his clipboard, his eyes scanning the pages as he confirmed what I already knew. 2 weeks, Freya," he said, his tone sympathetic yet firm. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of uncertainty, of fear and doubt. And now, with this knowledge, I knew that my life would never be the same. "Thank you, doctor," I said, my voice strained but steady as I tried to hold it together. "I swear you look like someone who just received a death note." Elena's humor was a welcome respite from the seriousness of the situation, and I couldn't help but laugh, despite the tears that threatened to fall. "A death note? Oh, Elena, you know how to make me laugh," I said, the relief of the moment washing over me like a wave. I entered the mansion with Elena by my side, my heart pounding in my chest as we made our way towards Logan's study. Every step seemed to echo through the halls, each breath a reminder of the weight of my revelation. As we approached the study, Alina gave my arm a gentle squeeze, a silent gesture of support that I clung to like a lifeline. He gently urged me forward, giving me the courage to knock on Logan's study door. "Go ahead," she whispered, squeezing my hand one last time before turning to leave, her footsteps echoing softly in the hallway. I took a deep breath, mustering all the courage I had left as I waited for Logan to invite me in. As I stood there, my thoughts turned to Alina, the only friend I had made in this unfamiliar world. She had been there for me since the beginning, a beacon of hope in a sea of darkness. My hand trembled on the doorknob as I wavered, my resolve crumbling under the weight of my nerves. With a silent prayer, I turned away from Logan's study, leaving the secret of my pregnancy unspoken for now. Retreating to the sanctuary of my room, I collapsed onto the bed, my thoughts racing as I processed the news. 5 months. 5 months until the child was born. 5 months until I could claim my freedom. I allowed herself a small smile at the thought, the first hint of joy since I had arrived at the pack. In 5 months, I would have my freedom. I would be able to start a new life, away from the oppressive confines of the pack and the expectations of my mate. My resolve strengthened. I rose from my bed and made my way back to Logan's study, my steps slower and more deliberate this time. My hand was steady as I raised it to knock, my breath held in anticipation of what was to come. But as I turned the doorknob and stepped inside, my heart stopped in my chest. There, on the plush sofa, sat Logan with another woman in his arms, their embrace intimate and possessive. My throat tightened, the taste of betrayal and hurt filling my mouth as I watched the scene unfold before me. Lucia's moans echoed through the room, a siren's song of betrayal and heartbreak. As I turned away from the sight of Logan with another woman, my eyes stung with unshed tears. I closed the door behind me, my heart shattering into 1,000 pieces with each step I took. The pain was overwhelming, suffocating, as I tried to fight the growing sense of despair. As I wandered aimlessly through the halls of the mansion, my mind reeling from the shock of what I had seen, a small, rational part of me tried to reason with my emotions. "You have no right to be angry," it whispered in my ear. "You are nothing more than Logan's breeder, his means to an end. You knew this from the beginning." But the truth was, my wolf Alexa was howling in agony, her soul yearning for the one who was supposed to be our mate. As I retreated to the solitude of my room, I could feel the tears burning my cheeks, a testament to my broken heart. "Never again," I whispered to myself, my voice harsh and determined. "I will never fall for him. I will never let him hurt me like this again." It was a vow I made to myself in that moment, a promise to my wolf and to my sanity. Falling for him will ruin me. 3 days passed in a haze of avoidance and denial, each moment a constant battle to keep my distance from Logan and the memories of his betrayal. He didn't make any attempts to approach me either, his silence as deafening as a thunderstorm in the night. I busied myself with small tasks and mundane routines, anything to keep my mind from wandering to thoughts of him. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing within me, my body growing heavier and more lethargic by the day. With each passing day, the knowledge of the life growing within me became more and more real. I could feel it, a small spark of energy fluttering in my belly, a constant reminder of the bond between Logan and I, no matter how much I tried to ignore it. I knew the news of my pregnancy must have spread throughout the pack by now. Logan was their alpha, and the heir to his bloodline would be a matter of great importance to the pack. Yet, he still kept his distance, his silence a chilling testament to his indifference. Freya's pav. Amidst the mundane monotony of the day, irritation and annoyance surged through me like a storm brewing in my mind. Each passing second seemed to bring a new annoyance, a fresh reason to grind my teeth and scowl. The people around me, with their banal chatter and meaningless meandering, only fueled my growing discontent. They chalked it up to pregnancy hormones, and though I didn't doubt their words, it did little to alleviate the intense frustrations simmering within. With a frustrated huff, I pushed myself off the chair, seeking refuge in the cool, fresh air outside. The sudden change of scenery did little to quell the agitation coursing through my veins, but at least it provided a reprieve from the oppressive atmosphere within. I wandered aimlessly, my feet carrying me deeper into the woods, the rustle of leaves and the chirping of birds, a gentle balm to my frayed nerves. "Freya, wait!" A familiar voice called out from behind me, the sound sending a jolt of trepidation through my heart. As I turned to face the voice, my breath caught in my chest. Logan stood before me, his gaze intense and piercing, his eyes aflame with a fire that sent shivers down my spine. Without warning, he pulled me closer, his arms encircling my frame, his scent overwhelming my senses. My heart skipped a beat as I felt the warmth of his body pressed against mine, the tension and anger between us palpable. "Freya," he murmured, his voice low and husky, the mere sound of my name on his lips sending a ripple of electricity through my core. "Logan," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly as I met his gaze, my mind reeling as I tried to make sense of the emotions coursing through me. Anger, betrayal, and desire warred within my heart, leaving me in a maelstrom of confusion. He leaned in closer, his breath hot against my skin, his lips grazing the shell of my ear. "Tell me," he growled, the possessive edge to his voice unmistakable. "Tell me what's wrong." Logan's firm grasp on my arm guided me deeper into the forest, our footsteps leaving imprints in the soft earth. We arrived at his private quarters, secluded within the heart of the woods, the air thick with a tension that could be cut with a knife. "Freya," he growled, his voice a mixture of hunger and frustration. "Why have you been avoiding me?" My heart thundered in my chest, the truth of my feelings clawing its way up my throat. I stood before Logan, my fists clenched at my sides, my chest heaving with the weight of my emotions. "Why do you care?" I mumbled, my words barely audible through the deafening roar of my emotions. He saw me as nothing more than a breeder, a pawn in his grand scheme, but the charade had worn thin, and I was tired of this never-ending game of cat and mouse. Logan's brow furrowed, his jaw set in a stubborn line. "You don't know what you're talking about," he growled, his frustration palpable in the air around us. "I hate the way you play with my feelings," I snapped, my voice trembling with emotion. "I hate the way you pretend to care about me when all you really care about is an heir to the throne." Logan's expression hardened, his eyes like chips of ice. "I don't have to pretend to care about you," he retorted, his voice deadly quiet. "You know the truth, Freya. You always have." I recoiled, his words like daggers in my heart. My mind reeled as the silence stretched between us, thick and heavy like a fog rolling in from the sea. I knew that Logan was right. I had always known the truth. But hearing it spoken aloud, the raw and unapologetic honesty of his words was like a slap to the face, jolting me out of my denial. "You're right," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "I did know the truth, and now I know something else." Logan's face contorted, his voice like a low growl. "Remember your place. You are my breeder. That is your purpose." My blood boiled, indignation rising up inside me like a raging storm. "You love reminding me that I am nothing but a possession, a plaything for your amusement," I hissed. "Yet you have the audacity to be upset that I am keeping my distance from you?" "I don't have to justify myself to you," Logan sneered, his expression darkening with each passing moment. "You will do as I say. You belong to me." "I am not your property," I insisted, my voice beginning to crack with the weight of my emotions. "I am a person with thoughts and feelings of my own. Why can't you see that? What do you want from me?" I choked back a sob, my tears threatening to spill over. "I know you don't have a heart, but even if you had a heart, you'd see that I'm hurting," I said, choking back tears. "Shut up, Freya," Logan ordered, his voice like cold steel. "This is hell. You stole everything from me, my freedom, my dignity, my future. How you only see me as a tool, as a vessel to carry your heir." My voice rose in desperation, my rage and heartache pouring out of me like a torrent. "Enough," Logan thundered, his patience snapping like a brittle twig. "You are my breeder, and that is all you will ever be. If you cannot accept that, then I have no use for you." A chill crept up my spine, a sense of cold dread washing over me. "What are you saying?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Logan's gaze bore into me, his eyes glinting with a dark, crazed intensity. Then, without another word, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the room, leaving me alone and trembling in his wake. Freya's pav. The silence that followed was deafening, a void that threatened to swallow me whole. My heart hammered against my chest, each beat a painful reminder of the cruel reality that had become my life. I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my cheeks as I grappled with the devastating realization that I was truly alone. "You are not alone, Freya. I am here with you, always." Alexa, my wolf, soothed, her voice a warm and reassuring presence in the darkness of my mind. "It's not the same," I said, wiping away my tears and dusting myself off. "I'm still alone. In a different way, perhaps, but still alone." "Ouch," Alexa said with a playful whine. "Talk about a blow to the ego, but you're wrong, you know." "You're not alone," Alexa insisted, the warmth of her voice wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. "You have me, and soon you'll have a little one inside of you. Our pup. You're not just you anymore, Freya. You're a family, a pack." I sighed, the weight of her words sinking into me like a stone. "I suppose that's true," I admitted, "but I still can't help but feel lost, abandoned." "You know things are bad when you start to miss your evil stepmother and family," I said with a weak laugh, forcing a smile despite the heaviness in my heart. Alexa huffed a soft chuckle. "Well, when you put it that way, maybe this situation isn't so hopeless after all. At least Logan's not actively trying to kill you, or lock you away in a tower for that matter." I couldn't help but chuckle along with her, the brief respite from my turmoil a welcome relief. I raced through the forest, the wind whipping through my hair and the crunch of leaves beneath my feet the only sounds to accompany my thoughts. I ran until my legs ached, until the mansion came into view through the trees, a distant beacon of comfort. Panting, I slowed my pace, winding my way back through the forest and onto the mansion grounds. As I approached the grand entrance, I paused, taking a deep breath before pushing open the door and stepping inside. I stepped into the foyer, the cool marble floors a stark contrast to the dampness of the forest. My footsteps echoed through the empty hallways as I made my way deeper into the mansion. With each step, I felt the weight of my emotions pressing down on me, the pain and anger that had been brewing inside me all day threatening to spill over. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, a familiar solace in a world that had become so unfamiliar, so cold and unforgiving. As I ascended the stairs, a familiar voice called out to me from behind. "Freya?" I turned to see Lucia, her petite frame and soft honey-colored hair unmistakable even in the dim light of the staircase. "Hello, Lucia," I replied, forcing a smile. "What brings you here?" Lucia hesitated, her expression tight with concern. "I heard you were upset," she ventured. "I wanted to make sure you were all right." My smile faltered as I remembered Lucia's true nature, her sweet facade hiding a cold and calculating heart. "I see." My voice was sharp, a low growl rumbling in my chest. "Thank you for your concern, but it's not necessary." Lucia's eyes flashed with a momentary flicker of anger, but her serene mask was back in place in an instant. "Of course." "I heard you're pregnant, huh? How is that little bastard of an unborn baby treating you?" Lucia asked, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. My face fell, the shame and anger I had been struggling with all day bubbling to the surface once more. "What business is that of yours?" I snapped, my voice low and dangerous. "Or did you just come here to gloat?" Lucia's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing as she took a step closer to me. "Why would I gloat?" she hissed, her voice a viper's whisper. "I'm just curious as to what it feels like to be carrying the spawn of a heartless monster like Logan. Must be quite the burden." My fists clenched at my sides, a snarl building in the back of my throat. "You don't get to talk about him like that," I growled. Lucia scoffed, her expression one of pure disdain. "Oh, I don't, do I?" she spat. "I'm just telling the truth, Freya. Logan is a cold-hearted bastard who will use you and discard you the moment you're no longer of use to him." A chill ran through me, a cold realization settling in my bones. Lucia was right. Logan was cruel, manipulative, and utterly ruthless. "You're just a breeder to him, Freya. That's all you'll ever be." Lucia's voice was smooth as silk, her words twisting like a knife in my gut. "He won't love you. He can't love anyone. And when he's done with you, he'll toss you aside like yesterday's garbage." "And that child," she continued, her voice low and menacing, "it will be nothing more than a tool to secure his legacy. You're just a breeder to him, Freya. That's all you'll ever be." Lucia's voice was smooth as silk, her words twisting like a knife in my gut. "He won't love you. He can't love anyone. And when he's done with you, he'll toss you aside like yesterday's garbage." "And that child," she continued, her voice low and menacing, It will be nothing more than a tool to secure his legacy. Lucia's words hung in the air between us like a poisonous fog, her eyes glinting with malice. You're pathetic, Freya. A weak little thing who can't even stand up for herself. Shut up, I snarled, taking a step toward her. Lucia laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that set my nerves on fire. Oh, look at you, getting all brave now, she taunted. Let's see if you can back up that bark with some bite. As Lucia taunted me, I felt something snap inside of me, a primal instinct surging to the surface. With a growl, I lunged at her, my hands outstretched and claws extended. But Lucia was quick, sidestepping my attack and shoving me backward. I stumbled, my balance shifting precariously as my foot caught on the edge of the stair. With a scream, I tumbled down the stairs, my body colliding with each step until I landed in a crumpled heap at the bottom. Freya's pav. My eyes fluttered open, the sharp pain in my head throbbing like a pulsing drum. As my vision cleared, I found myself staring up at the ornate ceiling of the mansion. Slowly, the memories of my confrontation with Lucia came rushing back, the shame and anger still simmering in my chest like hot coals. But I had more pressing concerns at the moment. My body ached from the fall, and I wasn't sure how long I had been unconscious. The soft beeping of machines and the muted voices of nurses filtered into my awareness as my eyes adjusted to the dimly lit hospital room. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled my nostrils, the white sheets that covered me feeling oddly cold and unwelcoming. I tried to move my head, but a jolt of pain shot through me like a lightning bolt, causing me to wince in agony. Easy there, a voice said, and I turned my head to see a nurse standing at the foot of my bed. You've had quite a fall. How long have I been here? I asked, my voice croaking like a frog's. The nurse adjusted my IV, a sympathetic look crossing her face. You've been here for 2 days. Logan brought you in himself. My eyes widened in shock. Logan had been the one to find me, to bring me here. A wave of emotion threatened to overwhelm me, my anger and confusion bubbling to the surface like a volcanic eruption. My baby, is it okay? I asked, my voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. The nurse's expression shifted, a sorrowful shadow crossing her face. I'm so sorry, Freya, she whispered, her voice a gentle caress. The fall was too traumatic, and we couldn't save the baby. Her words struck me like a sledgehammer to the chest, the pain so raw and visceral that I could scarcely breathe. My baby was gone. My child, my future, my entire world. My baby, is it okay? I asked, my voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. The nurse's expression shifted, a sorrowful shadow crossing her face. I'm so sorry, Freya, she whispered, her voice a gentle caress. The fall was too traumatic, and we couldn't save the baby. Her words struck me like a sledgehammer to the chest, the pain so raw and visceral that I could scarcely breathe. My baby was gone, my child, my future, my entire world. No, I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. It can't be. The nurse squeezed my hand, her eyes soft with empathy. I'm so sorry, Freya. I know this is devastating news. As her words sank in, a curtain of grief descended over me, a thick fog of despair obscuring my vision. Lucia's vicious hand had sent me tumbling down the stairs, her callous actions leading to the loss of my child. As my mind reeled, the shock slowly giving way to a simmering rage, I felt a primal urge to hunt her down, to make her pay for what she'd done. But something inside of me hesitated, a nagging voice whispering that revenge wouldn't bring my baby back, wouldn't ease the crushing weight of my grief. The nurse, sensing the need for privacy, quietly slipped out of the room, her footsteps fading into the white noise of the hospital. As soon as she was gone, the dam burst, my tears streaming down my face like rivers of salt. I wept for my child, for the future that had been cruelly snatched away, for the loss and emptiness that now filled the void in my heart. I curled into myself, the pain consuming me like a raging fire, my sobs echoing through the sterile silence of the hospital room. The fury inside me raged like a wildfire, burning away any semblance of restraint. I pushed past the nurses who tried to stop me, my feet pounding against the linoleum floor as I marched out of my room, a woman possessed. And there he stood, a cold and commanding figure framed against the harsh fluorescent light, the man who had brought me so much pain, the man responsible for the loss of my child. "Logan!" I shouted, my voice a broken and bitter accusation. The rage and pain coursing through me was suddenly snuffed out, my breath catching in my throat as Logan's hand clamped down around my neck, his fingers like steel. He yanked me towards him, his face mere inches from mine, his breath hot against my cheek. My heart thundered in my chest, fear and confusion warring within me as I stared into his piercing blue eyes so full of darkness and secrets. "What are you doing?" I managed to choke out, my voice a hoarse whisper. The nurses hesitated, their eyes flitting between Logan and me, their expressions a mix of shock and discomfort. But under the weight of Logan's menacing glare, they finally backed away, their footfalls retreating down the hall until it was just the two of us, our bodies pressed against each other in a twisted embrace. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice quivering as Logan's grip tightened around my neck, the pressure unbearable. "You should be resting," Logan said, the words clipped and harsh, like the crack of a whip. "I lost the baby," I cried, my sobs rising to a crescendo. "You took everything from me." "We will make another one," Logan said, his voice cold and dispassionate, as if my pain and grief were insignificant, nothing more than a mild inconvenience. Fury coursed through me, my body thrumming with the need to lash out, to punish him for his heartlessness. With a sudden burst of strength, I pushed against Logan's chest, my arms straining against his hold. "Why do you hate me so much?" I demanded, my voice shaking with rage and grief. "How can you be so cold, so unfeeling? Don't you even care that our child is gone?" Logan's expression remained impassive, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Go back inside your room and rest, Piccola," he commanded. "No," I fought back. "Don't make me," he says. And at this point I was done. I was done pretending that I didn't know what we are. "Why?" I asked, my voice low. "Why what?" he asked, his tone mocking. "Why are you denying our mate bond?"